Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, antitheism, antireligionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudo-history, pseudo-morality, things that are found in religion.
Howdy. How's it going?
This time, like I said, you already have a script. And I think did you already look at the script at all?
Just briefly, yeah. There's some sections like
I try to make breaks and say let's chat.
Yeah, where it says talk a little. Yeah,
right. Right, because and someone could like interrupt you a little bit or whatever, during a thing, like I do. But I mean, because I'm trying to explain things,
just to clarify things and whatever.
Right, yeah. Well, sometimes I have something written, and I also want to add to that understanding, because obviously there's a lot of stuff I understand that there's the thing two people don't get. I learned a lot, but I'm not a person that likes to remember details. It's not like I'm because some people are like really good at details, like my wife remembers her phone number from a child. I'm like, shit, I don't even remember the phone number now.
Yeah, for sure.
Right. So so what happens is you'll read something and I remember.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That's like, when I'm talking to Justin, sometimes like we'll be talking about something and he'll just have these obscure facts about history in his mind and he'll just rattle them off. And I'm like, holy shit, man. Like where did that even come from? How do you remember that shit?
Yeah. Well, I can do that sometimes, but I also forget a lot because I mean, my mind it doesn't dwell on my mind. I would say like, my mind likes to solve the next problem in a sense. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't dwell on things I already know. It's like, I already know that and move on.
Right.
So
I've found myself to be a concepts person. Like I can really grasp concepts really well, but when you get into the details of it, it just all seems like it goes in and out in one ear and out the other. So
yeah, well, yeah, I can see that. And that's, in a sense, a good way, though, to remember the general stuff, which, most people generally are doing. Like a lot of people that even they write books or whatever, it's not like they could recite word for word everything that's in the book either.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that people get like a wrong. There's some people that can't. Some people are absolute,
Right.
amazing at that. That's not what I've ever said I'm amazing at. What I'm amazing at is sometimes grasping things other people can't grasp.
Right.
Just like I've said before, like when I took psychology, I felt like the whole thing was super easy to me. Not because there was not certain areas, technical, whatever, that might be hard, but grasping like how people can be manipulated, stuff super easy to me. I mean, so, but that doesn't mean every single subject or every single like memorizing or something is super. That's not super easy to me. Math,
Right.
terrible, horrible. I mean, English still terrible. You know, but when it comes to grasping like deep things, I seem to do it simpler and faster than other people. It
Right.
seems, at least most people I've ever talked to, almost.
Yeah.
But once again, that doesn't mean like my mind is like on adrenaline and every single thought is that way. It's just like you said about concepts, certain types of things. But there's people that are, you know, good at math and see math everywhere. I see reason everywhere.
Right.
In a sense, I don't think mathematically. I think more like in this, to my opinion. So there's thinking that comes first. And obviously people would realize that because if you have to say critical thinking, you're already addressing that the first step is just simple thinking.
Right.
But anyways, that's my mind does that, breaks things up and sees things that other people, no one has to teach me that. I just know it. Or I should say, know is probably the wrong word too. It's like I realize it because I have to try to do something, like do the task. And then once I do the task, then I realize, wow, this would need to be done this way.
Right. Okay.
So that's what I mean. But so anyways, thinking comes first to me. Then after thinking, then it has to become more reasoned. Like when you say reason is different than thinking. Hey,
how are you?
Very good. So we're going to have you as a guest, and then we're also going to have Skeptic Nikki. So there's going to be all of us. And once she gets here too, then I'll have all of us go ahead and say who we are. We'll start with the guests first, and then we'll say who we are. But and then I'm just going to explain a little bit what I'm trying to do or what we are doing.
Wonderful.
What's that?
Great. Sounds great.
And then I was going to say, and then Cory's going to read. If you have a specific question that comes up when he is reading, because he's going to read a part, and then we're going to talk, and then read a part, and then talk. So, and I once in a while will interrupt Cory, but I want to, in general, try not to interrupt him until the break that I've made, you know, so as for us to talk.
Great.
But if there's something dramatic, you know, well, I'm just saying it needs to be addressed. You know, I'm totally for that.
Absolutely.
Also. So I'm not trying to force some kind of structure, but it would just help to make it easier to flow. And if you see his script and you know where he's reading, and then where it says, you know, a thing, you know, for us to talk. And I think I added like 6 in there. I'm not totally sure, but. Right, I tried to add him a certain amount of info, so it's not.
I'll try to bring that up.
So, and definitely, if you want to expand on or give your own insight to things, you know, that's totally welcome too. So
sure.
It doesn't just have to be, you know, questioning me or whatever. It can also be you explaining your thoughts on that or on in general.
I think dialogue is often the best way of getting at a point or explaining the nuances or like why is it important? You know, a dialogue is often with the classical structure, right?
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't say that I'm classical in structure. I'm extremely not classical in structure. I've never read a logic book. I have never read a famous philosopher. Not because there's not a benefit of doing that. It's just I have my own just natural like stuff that I think in reason, I think in rationalism, but those concepts are designed by my own mind. It's just how I think. And so I've just put, you know, myself in a sense, just because I didn't need to. If I already have a utility I can use, I don't need to go learn someone else's. But
Would you call yourself an autodidact?
Oh, absolutely. And a polymath too, because I'm quite skilled actually in several things that I actually am an autodidact in. Even psychology, which I got a bachelor's and did 7 classes, my master's, I was getting all A's, A plus or whatever. And I dropped out not because I couldn't pass, but because I had learned, I became an atheist in college. And then once my whole values changed, because once there wasn't this list of values I had to follow, I had to rethink, well, what are my values?
All of it.
And so I at first wasn't even sure if I was, morality or not. I didn't, because all of a sudden, before, what I thought morality was whatever my Christian upbringing had taught me. So if it didn't fit that, then it was automatically a moral. But now I had to think, what's moral? What's this? So it really, even that I did it my own way in a sense, because we were studying the school and the class, and they said, oh, pick whichever morality closestly fits to what you like or whatever you prefer. And I said, isn't there one that's better? Couldn't we judge that some are at least more beneficial or less beneficial?
Right.
I mean, are you saying that every single morality is equal? How can that be? And so that's when I started getting into axiology and wanting to understand value. How do we navigate value? Because that's, to me, really what a lot of times it comes down is that's how you figure out what's worth, what's not, what's valuable, what's good, what's not good. And that's also why I became a socialist and anarchist, because I realized for me, that was equaling what I think of as the high good in a sense. Or
you do realize that is also the basis of a spiritual path.
Well, that's, to me, I'm sure people would say that
the question of what I value could be described would be one great definition of a spiritual path.
Well, I'm sure that people would say that I've been on that, because I went from being a horrible human being to a much better human being. So I definitely, and I did find wonder. Although to me, in fact, at first I called myself a spiritual atheist, because I actually wasn't in the atheist community. And like I said, I didn't really read philosophy, so I did my own thing. And really, for me, I realized that just slowly. At first, I thought same thing as you, spiritual, but I realized for me that was just a religious word that I didn't see had a.
If it doesn't ring true, then it doesn't sink in. If it doesn't have juice, then don't follow it.
Well, what I'm just saying is, for me, I looked at the stuff, and it just didn't really fit. I didn't want it to mean anything supernatural.
Yeah.
And people said it could, and it couldn't. And I realized better for me is what I say now is I'm an axiological atheist. That I approach everything thinking even about atheism or whatever about value. So that's changed my whole thing. But anyways, enough about me about right now. So we have to have the two guests here, Nikki and Glenn, and you guys go ahead. I guess Glenn can go first, and then Nikki, and then Cory, and then we'll go to me. About introducing ourselves, just so people watching can get a little bit. Just say your name, say anything you want to say, like your little verb or whatever about you. Just maybe a minute or something, whatever. Just real quick.
So my name is Glenn Morton Ganaway. Hopefully everybody can hear me. Everything good. My name is Glenn Morton Ganaway. I'm ordained in 2 systems. One through the organization called OSIS. One is an interfaith mentor and member, or pastor, reverend, however you want to do it. It's an ordained 3-year college that you have to get ordained through, and I have a PhD level integral philosophy degree. So I really follow the idea of began with Aurobindo and the Mother through Gebser and Wilbur. I have an integral mind, I found Integral because I started writing a book and found out that the book was already written and the whole system already existed. I began comparing systems and realized, went on this journey that is so familiar. What do I believe and what is it? And these things happened. I've been married for 20 years, the love of my life. Reverend Yolanda, a New York and Vermont personality. So you may know me from that. I have a YouTube channel. I teach 3 times a week, mostly in private, and I have a spiritual counseling practice that is about 1/3 of my income. I derive most of my income and most of my daily mental powers by being an account clerk for an essential workers union.
Very cool.
And raised a hillbilly, an autodidact, dropped out of college, became a sex worker, found the radical fairies. That's the spiritual journey, the kind of the underground CV, the life that was happening during all of that stuff that's down on paper. So I'm heavily involved. I was heavily involved in ACT UP. I was heavily involved in Black Lives Matter. I was heavily involved in Occupy Wall Street.
1 second. I'll be right back. Sorry. Go ahead.
That's I've been on the so I've and I call myself an anarchist because that is what is the true path. That is true, always true, no matter what you do. The flag behind you, Cory. Anarchy is order. I believe that, and I live by it. Nice.
Yeah, so do I. Absolutely an anarchist.
And I call that a spiritual path. Now, however however that manages to manifest for other people, that's wonderful as well.
Right. I don't use the word, and I don't really take offense if someone says stuff like that, because to me, it's a word without a unique definition. In a sense, because I mean, if you ask 10 people, if you look in the dictionary, there's different ways that is. Some see it as the breath of life itself. I mean, and others almost like an animism, and then others, see it as just like if I say that I love you with my full spirit or something, that would not be that I believe in spirits.
Right.
My whole being, my whole whatever, because as a colloquial term. So, but whatever.
Well,
but anyway,
I will be having spirits later today. At about 4 or 5 o'clock, I will imbibe in spirits.
So, Nikki, could you go ahead and actually
altered states and things?
Right. So, could you go ahead, Nikki, and tell us a little bit about you and get us caught up?
Excellent. Well, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I've been looking forward to it. I greatly enjoyed being on previously and really enjoyed the conversation. So my name is Nikki. I'm known as Beat the Cult on Twitter, and I do have a YouTube channel, Beat the Cult. I haven't posted in about a month, but I'm in the process of developing that to the channel that I appreciate, which is going to probably be conversation and podcast based down the road. But to get into, I guess, my educational background and the basis for my interest in religious studies, I'm interested in pursuing my PhD. I haven't quite solidified the path yet, but I do have a master's degree in child development and family studies, which served as the foundation for my interest in religious, basically religious studies as well. Most likely will be pursuing a degree in a PhD in religious studies, but I'm very interested in how familial religious influence affects a child's development across their life, and how that child passes down these ideals to their, I like to say offspring, but their kids as well. I am greatly interested in this study. I've been doing some self-study on my own. Just had a really ridiculous book haul from McKay's bookstore where I purchased about 30 to 40 books on Christian apologetics, which Christianity is my predominant interest because of my upbringing. And my family is religious. My uncle's a megachurch pastor. My parents are evangelicals. And I want to be able to, I've always been debating. Well, I hate to say debating because they're not well equipped, but I've always been discussing these topics with them. And I want to be able to discuss them with Christians on a more profound level, one that's not based in opinion, but actually based in knowledge of the subject. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I was talking to you, Damien, about reading up on the anthropological history and how that led to religious belief and how it's spread throughout the world as we moved out of Africa and migrated to different areas of the planet. And I will continue to educate myself and get on Glenn's level one day. Yeah.
Well, us preachers kids have to stick together, Nikki.
Yeah, well, I wish I was a preacher. You would think I actually was a preacher's kid. I'm actually the niece of a preacher, which isn't nearly the same, but I am actually interested in getting becoming ordained as well as a humanist or interfaith, as you say, something that allows me to help guide individuals out of Christian belief specifically, because that was a very difficult path for me. And I empathize.
Oh, well, that's just like I've told Cory before that, and it. By the way, when I say this too, I'm not saying that I like primitive beliefs. Some people, if I had to choose in a sense, religious persuasion, it would be animist, because it's the least intrusive.
Okay.
Which is what, like I said before to people, it's basically when you say spiritual, not religious. To me, that's like an animism, a belief that there's some sort of things out there. But those things out there are things you just get in balance with or try to. It's not. There's not like these demons attacking you like people. Well, I'm just saying, and their thought in a sense is not really like I've talked to Cory before. It's not like animism has a separation between this land and the next land. So life, death, it's kind of like happens at the same time almost, or always is happening. It's an animist compared to, like I was saying to Nikki, said, what's the difference between animist and totemist? The totemist would definitely start to see, not that they have to, because not all of them, but they start to see more segmented, like control. Like anarchism to me is more in pure animism cultures. Then once you add totemism, well, someone's in charge. Someone is guiding or leading, even if just in a very loose way. It still starts losing that. And then shamanism, like I've said before, if it's by itself, goes almost back to animism. It has a lot less totemism. So depending, but shamanism often is with totemism to some extent, almost exclusively, not away from it. It has the pieces of it, like it has clans, and it'll have beliefs about what you should do as far as food, like when the Jews have, in a sense, or the ancient Hebrews had like food, things they're supposed to not eat, like pork or something. That is a form of totemism. That these kind of animals we can't eat. It is their sacred pain.
Similar to the cow in Hinduism.
Absolutely. That's absolutely. It's a form of totemism. Not, in other words, like they wouldn't call themselves totemists, but it's an aspect. And so when we talk about these older religions or whatever, and we're going to read through them a little bit real quick. But you need to understand, I was just going to explain it though. You need to understand that when they started, they were not religions. People wouldn't say, I'm an animist, or whatever.
It was reality. That was the culture.
Right.
It's the culture, right? It's just the way things are. It's the culture. The guy has the God up there. The God is in the jar on the altar. That's where the God is. And this guy has to take care of him. We have to feed it in order for things to be okay. I mean, that was just the way it was. Nobody was
right, just trying to explain, because when people hear how I use terms, a lot of times you understand I'm trying to explain very complicated stuff. Very complicated, and making it the most packaged for the general public. That's why I try to simplify it.
It is.
Because in animist, it's not like every animist is the same. That's all over the place. But I'm trying to, in totemist, it's not like every totemist culture is the same. So I'm trying to put it so that this humongous amount of knowledge I learned, in 15 years or whatever, so since 2006. And so all this knowledge I have, to try to make it more easier to remember,
digestible,
and utilize. Because then once you start seeing how I see it, sort of, then you can look at, just like someone said before, well, these people are animists or not. Every person who believes in a supernatural something is an animist plus whatever. They're already animists.
We still have animists.
Oh, yes, in Africa especially, where animism started, because that's where all humans started, and where animism spreads out from, there still is a few cultures, I know it's 4 or 5 or 6 or something, that are almost pure animism. And almost all of them are they wouldn't use that animus as a word. And they also are very, in a sense, anarchist and socialist, but I doubt they would use those words either. Because
I would as well.
In our society now, you can find aspects of totemism.
Totally, yes.
With logos, with logos,
totally,
you can see totemism in our culture right now. You can see animism in our culture right now with like going to New York Times Square or something like that. You could the energy of a place or something that you could see. It's like I want to go to the bar. Why?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say too
you got liquor right over here. Why are you going to a bar?
I was going to say too that animism is the only, in a sense, religious persuasion that we, in a sense, we're born with. Not born with, because when we're born, we don't have it. We gain it sometime probably around 3 until 7. We gain this, and because it's when you're smart enough to kind of think, but you're still too creative and not knowing the fact that you start seeing the world as all kinds of
agent-driven.
Yeah,
so it's animism originates in a young age because because almost like individuals in the past, children don't necessarily know how their outside world works, so they apply agency to it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I'm just saying. So when people say, because I try to bring this up because there's an argument sometimes with atheists and say theists or religion people. So religious people often say that religion. Well, I'm just saying religious believers, people that are religious believers. That's that.
I liked it though. I thought that was funny.
Well, I'm just trying to. What I try to do though, like, see, some people are really aggressive and attack, and put people down. Yeah, that's not my way. My way is actually to teach. My goal is and what I mean to teach is not just facts, but I want people to get this desire and this ability to reason, to start analyzing and thinking about things. So. I just want to say, like I said, that so when we talk about animism, because he's going to read it, 100,000 years ago, I'm not claiming these people have every aspect of animism. I'm saying that this is when you start to see the behaviors match a type of thinking. And that type of thinking kept growing. Like you said, we still have animists today. Well, they're probably more structured even than the 100,000 years ago when it began. So that's all I'm trying to say is it's not like...
But not as honest.
Yeah, it's like a persuasion or whatever, or something, or a understanding more than a religion.
Yeah.
Sure.
Go ahead, Cory, and tell us about you real quick.
Yeah, sure. I at Skeptical Lefty on Twitter. I'm a dad, a podcaster, a YouTuber. I also happen to be an anarchist and an atheist, though I don't focus on the atheism nearly as much as I used to. I call myself a skeptic because I like to follow the evidence as much as I can. Other than that, anarcho-communist is my particular persuasion, but yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Most people who watch Damien's channel know me.
Right. And since
how are you raised, Cory? How are you? We're the nephew of a preacher, the son of a preacher, right? And I've heard a lot of Damien's story because I try to I'm a listener, right? So I know a lot of Damien's story. How were you raised, Cory? I don't remember you.
It was a bit of a mix. My parents were I guess you could say my mom's schizophrenic, and my father was an alcoholic until he became a born again Christian when I was a teenager.
Oh,
so then I kind of rebelled against that because
you were already baked by that
time. Yeah, that's right. So then, I kind of grew up with that, and then I didn't really associate with atheism until I was an adult, And I went through a conservative phase in my mid-20s to early 30s.
I know.
Mhm.
We're talking about religious people. The next thing we're talking about angry atheists.
So funny. So funny.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that next.
yeah, I went through the angry atheist phase, and absolutely. But yeah, when I started reading about like anarchism, that really started bringing me into like a more social justice, more caring about other people, kind of like oriented
That's
view
what
of the
anarchism
world.
is, right?
Yeah. So
Really? So you'll have to forgive me. I'm not well versed in the intricacies of anarchy. I'm actually reading a little bit of it up on it now. Of course, the stigma attached to it, it's almost a pejorative.
Yeah.
So I'm learning
For
about
reason.
it. I don't know much
For
about
reason.
it.
Like I said, maybe you were here, Nikki. I don't think you were. The A and the circle behind
Mhm.
Cory,
I
the
see
O
that
is the A and the circle. The circle is stands for order.
The O stands for order.
The O stands for order. So anarchy is order.
It's a bit of an oxymoron, isn't it?
Yeah, right. So it's called violence, by the group, but the same way anarchism is called violence is, if you allow me to explain this, I'm explaining anarchism on
Oh,
Damien's
please
podcast.
do. I'm reading and I'm like, I'd rather hear a specified view.
Well, I often explain it as the forest doesn't have a manager.
That's true.
Old growth, beautiful, working together, everything's great. Nobody starves. Nobody.
Some people starve.
Well,
Or some animals starve.
I mean, there's a cycle of nutrients. I'm not saying there's a cycle of nutrients. Everything stays in balance, and there isn't toxic, tragic.
It's
right?
not due to any type
It's
of
healthy.
malicious behavior, like
It's
starvation is. Right. That's interesting.
In order for it to express itself at its most glorious expression, every tree is able to express its glorious. Every animal, every bug, everything is in a forest is able to express its full without anybody managing the whole thing.
Yeah, and I would say, like I said, once we read the Animism, Cory does, I think I added the part of 3 cultures that I think are socialist anarchists or even communist anarchists, and they're animists. They're in Africa. To me, they're the Africa. And once again, like I said, I don't pick it because I believe in noble savages or something. I just, when you hear how these people behave, that is what I'm. That's what I respect. I respect the obvious morality in their behavior, not because they're from Africa. It just so happens that I learned facts, and then when I learned them, I was like, "Wow, that's
the obvious morality."
Cool. What's that?
I said the obvious morality.
Yeah.
Are you implying that there's no more immoral behaviors that they engage in?
No, I'm saying how they engage. The fact that everybody's equal, including children. The fact that they have divorce rights, male, female. The fact that they don't have a leader. The fact that they make sure everybody eats and they share food. The fact that they
don't share with. And if you don't stick around. They don't share back. So
I'm not just saying. So once I hear that stuff, that to me is anarchism. It's the fact of the caring and the mutualism, because we all benefit. Like all of us in a sense are doing this, and we're getting a benefit. We're learning. We're be able to talk, hear ideas. We're able to share them with others. There's a benefit to that.
Do you think that do you think it's realistic to extrapolate that out to the other 8 billion in the planet, though?
I think that's a very valid question, but it's like that asks the questions: what's the process, or how did we exit the forest and lose all this information that we have innately in us if we're all evolved out of the same place? How do we get here if we all come from the forest? Well, the idea is we talked ourselves out of it, and that's the argument. That's the argument Damien's going to make about civilization later.
Well, I would say that we had that 7,000 to 5,000 years ago, warring male clans killed it out of us and forced domination.
It caused it run away. That's why there's anarchism in the hills and in the far away, because people who were anarchists, the people who didn't want to go along with a patriarchy, hierarchy, et cetera, and so forth, and power over others and land,
Right.
wanted
And all that started really, to me, also really because of agriculture.
Before I was going to say, with the advent of agriculture, that's where
hunter-gatherers, it's not that they never did anything wrong or something, or hunter-gatherers wouldn't go to war, but when they go to war, regularly. It's more about prestige than so much about domination and taking over and owning and controlling.
It wasn't about owning or controlling like a certain.
And talk about how great they are, like a football game almost. Or something. It was more of that kind of a behavior between hunter-gatherers than taking over your land, raping all your women, killing the men, doing they didn't do stuff like that.
Chimpanzees engage in that behavior, and from what I understood, with the limited resources and the limitation of returns, that was their goal, was to take things from neighboring tribes, because there was a large loss, because any type of war resulted in a loss of life of men, and for that to be justified, there has to be some type of resource attainment or some type of benefit given to the community to help them advance or stay alive.
Well, there's the ones that were doing that, especially, like I said, 7,000 years ago, or beginning 12,000 years ago. They already, the 13,000 years ago, I think, is the first kind of like totem pole things. And it's basically like the great leader, or it's a symbolic, in a sense, leader, not like a specific person, but this is like almost like saying Adam and Eve. This is Adam or something, it's like the progenitor of our tribe or whatever. In a sense, but it means all the people, and so because there already is several things, and it's certainly by 11,000 that they definitely had them, and then at 9,000 still have them. They're making statues of people.
Yeah, but that wasn't everywhere. Graeber.
No, I agree. It's not everywhere.
Ludlow point out that isn't always the development. There are whole, whole parts of Eastern Europe and Turkey and stuff that have no special graves. All the houses are within a couple of meters, exactly the same size, and it's for 10,000, was there for 10,000 years.
Well, I would agree that there's different cultures. Like, so every culture didn't affect every because religion, which we talk about in
lack of religion
in general, it's culture. So when people move, things move, ideas move. Sometimes they then morph and change depending on the people's previous belief, or on things like, say, a volcano erupts, or earthquake, or whatever, or a large storm and floods or something.
Yeah, they said they left because of technology. Horse people, they encountered horse people, and that there's the technology and stuff. Their whole lifestyle changed, so their village structure and everything changed.
Well, right. But the horse people,
so the village structure didn't work that way anymore.
Right, but the horse people's like about anywhere from after 7,000, about 6,000 or 5.
They were living this way all the way up until the horse people.
Well, that's just a lot of the movement across. But see, to me, 10,000 years ago, we already had them riding elk and reindeer and stuff up in the north. My personal thought is that, because you can even see it going over to
it's the whole thing.
Sweden by, I think, 8,000 or 9,000. I think it's 8,000. And in Russia, they had these like bent sticks. They would hit the animals in the nose or something. I guess maybe it knocks them out or dazes them where they can grab them. Anyways, but they were definitely milking them, and then likely, to me, riding them or using them to pull carts or whatever, a beast of burden in a sense. Yeah. And definitely there's plenty of reindeer like things still up in the north. In fact, they have reindeer races in some places in Russia.
Reindeer culture, buffalo culture, elk culture. It just depends where you are as the thing that you goat culture in the Midwest, sheep culture. It's like every one of these things is using the bioregion to create a culture and a thing.
And my point is, though, that the idea of riding them is from the north, and then as those people came down, then they met the people that were already doing that little bit of stuff with horses, and that's when the horse thing blows up, because you have these people that do this all the time, because like the bow tie are the ones that did the horse, I think at 5,600 or something. They have like bit marks in their teeth, but they were also milking them. But the bow tie definitely has genetic connections to the ancient North Eurasians, which I've sent Cory stuff before. They're the big deal. They almost every like mythology that's in the Americas, not all, but a few in the Americas and a lot in like Asia and in Europe is really related to, or has links to, especially Indo-European as far as Europe, to the ancient North Eurasian beliefs. So it's pretty amazing. But anyways, so we're going to go ahead and start. Cory, start reading to us about animism.
All right. So we've got thoughts on evolution of religion, animism, totemism, shamanism, paganism, and progressed organized religion. Religions, continuing in our modern world, full of science and facts, should be seen as little more than a set of irrational conspiracy theories of reality. Nothing more than a confused reality made up of unscientific echoes from man's ancient past. Rational thinkers must ask themselves why continue to believe in religion stories. Religion myths which are nothing more than childlike stories and obsolete tales once used to explain how the world works, acting like magic was needed when it was always only nature. These childlike religious stories should not even be taken seriously, but sadly too often they are. Often without realizing it, we accumulate beliefs that we allow to negatively influence our lives. In order to bring about awareness, we need to be willing to alter skewed beliefs. Rational thinkers must examine the facts instead of blindly following beliefs or faith. Damien wants truth on religion and utilizes a collection of researched information, such as archaeology, anthropology, history, linguistics, genetics, art, science, sociology, geography, psychology, philosophy, theology, biology, and zoology. To make people question their beliefs with information, inquiries, and ideas to ponder and expand on. The two main goals are to expose the evolution of religion starting 100,000 years ago and to offer challenges to remove the rationale for faith. It is like an intervention for belief in myths that have plagued humankind for way too long. We often think that we know what truth is, but nevertheless, this can be but a vantage point away from losing credibility. If we are not willing to follow valid and reliable reason and evidence, the door of reason opens not once, but many times. Come on a journey to free thought where the war against ignorance and the victor is a rational mind. So we've got heading Damien's thoughts on religion evolution with external links for more information. Pre-animism in Africa.
By the way, people, sorry, real quick. So people know I'm going to put a blog link that has all this that he's reading and
I'm following.
Well, I'm just saying for people watching the video.
Oh, for people. Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm sure you and Glenn, I gave you both a copy so that you knew what he was reading. But I also made a blog that has all of it in that has links. And in the video, when I finally do it, I'm going to be putting some pictures of art or whatever that I have that go with what is being talked about.
Very cool.
So we've got pre-animism in Africa mainly, but also in Europe and Asia at least 300,000 years ago. Animism in Africa around 100,000 years ago. Totemism in Europe around 50,000 years ago. Shamanism in Siberia around 30,000 years ago. Paganism in Turkey around 12,000 years ago. Progressed organized religion or institutional religion in Egypt around 5,000 years ago. And the current world, quote unquote, world religions after 4,000 years ago, and then early atheistic doubting at least 2,600 years ago. Religion is an evolved product, and yes, religion is like fear given wings. Atheists talk about gods and religions for the same reason doctors talk about cancer. They are looking for a cure, or a firefighter talks about fires because they burn people and they care to stop them. We atheists too often feel a need to help the victims of mental slavery held in the bondage that is false beliefs of gods and the conspiracy theories of reality found in religions. And now we are prompted to talk a little bit about what we've just read.
Oh, I wrote down two questions. Anybody have any? the two questions are what are Bible stories for? Why do they keep getting like written down? Or why does the Bhagavad Gita sung every year? What about the Book of the Dead, Tibetan's Book of the Dead, or the serpent power, the Vishnu cult with the serpent power? Why are these things written down over and over and over again? Why do we keep telling the story about how all the animals got on this big boat and God saved them because they did the right thing? God liked them the best. Why do we keep telling those?
One of the oldest stories. One of the oldest stories known is Beauty and the Beast. I mean, why do we still keep telling that?
Gilgamesh, Beauty and the Beast is Gilgamesh.
But likely, I heard this one. I can't remember if there's a scientific study that now because I just can't remember. But I think it might be that they did that. There's an Aboriginal belief of volcano going off, and they looked at the time that people showed up in Australia. And this might be one. I think it's like 20,000 years or 18,000. I can't remember now. But some amount of time. But a long time. Like one of the probably oldest stories in a sense. Because it links up to where it's at and what it said. But then again, here's their thought: what if someone just said this stuff and just happened to be right? Sometimes in life, people say things and it sounds good, and that was a, telling a fact from the past, whatever. And you can just accidentally be right. I mean, just as much as we can accidentally be wrong. You see what I'm saying? So I'm not saying that the story isn't true. I'm just saying that I do know that whenever we're engaging in storytelling, which people need to understand. To me, a lot of times science and whatever is also a form of storytelling. Sure. The difference is you're using fact points in a sense to build the story instead
of narrative.
Narrative just coming from oral stories that may have very little facts in them. But I also know that some of this, I don't think that every story lacks something either. Like there's some people that don't believe, they'll say all religion is false, all the stories are untrue. Well, the entire story, if it's taken as is definitely untrue. But it doesn't mean that there's not. That's like when some people say that Jesus is a myth. Well, I don't know. I do know that it is possible that a human being could have said, "I am the Son of God," but actually not been. Well, it doesn't.
Lots of people do it now.
I was going to say.
So to me,
it's a real money in that.
So to me, the fact of trying to say debunk Jesus, I think that if you read the Bible correctly, it debunks Jesus itself. As far as what I mean is what the Christian story conception as a whole is. Yeah. And I have 17 of them actually little.
I know. So it can't be that they're telling the story that of events that happened. That can't, surely, that we can't be. So what is it for? They're metaphors. They are. I see and understand them as metaphors, and even cultures take on other people's metaphors as well. Because Enoch is the story I mentioned about the flood is one of the oldest stories across the planet. It is told again and again and again because it's the story of the end of the last ice age. Right. That's why it's all over the planet, because it's the story that the waters came up really, way fast, and there was nothing we could do to appease God. The waters kept coming, but I think it was a memorable thing for a lot of people.
But I think that
stories about it to remember. A lot of people died. They lost their livelihoods. We had to move. Our culture changed. That's huge,
I agree. But there's also the fact that us in general have a fear, say, of death and of life. All these scary things can happen.
Oh, I know. This make sense. I mean, we had to move, not because God was mad at us, because we were being shown the promised land. Change that narrative, maybe.
Or God was mad we didn't leave sooner.
I mean, that's what religion is for. I think is to say, no, everything's going to be okay.
To appease common fears. Yeah.
But I think it's been used like every institution that's been corrupted, every good idea has been corrupted. Books have done this, music has done this. It's used to manipulate people in order to have power over them.
Of course.
So it's just one more tool that has to be seen through so we could like live in the world that we say is possible. This animist world that it's like, I'm going to be me and I'm going to try to express it my highest thing and trust that the world is going to support that because I live in the world, because the world is making me and my molecules and everything. It has to work with me, right?
Well, we have that perception that working around us. But I mean, if we looked at like the blue pale dot or whatever, like Carl Sagan talked about, if we see only under a microscope, we would think the world is super active, and then you could look out of the microscope and the room be very, sit still. So it really vantage point can definitely change things, but it doesn't change the reality. That's why when people say like science has proven reality is false or whatever, or is a hologram, I'm like, then I don't think that either they're understanding how to explain hologram to you, or you're not grasping that reality is still real.
Yeah.
But so did you have some idea?
Like why are we? Oh. Why do you think we keep telling the same stories, Nikki? I haven't heard why do you think we tell all the stories? Maybe even family stories, maybe even like religious stories. Do you have a favorite story in the Bible or a favorite myth story that brings you comfort? I know I have several that remind me, that tell the story. One of my favorites is how the Bhagavad Gita opens. It's Arjuna is in the charioteer. He goes, my family is fighting. I'm gonna go. You're asking me that my job is to go kill my uncle? And he goes, it's not ever what you do. It's only why you do. So yes. It's that story of like, it isn't the killing or the other thing. It's who you're in service to, what goals and what things you're in service to. Something like maybe greater than yourself that you align yourself with. So do you have a story that inspires you from a myth or a Bible story or something?
Yes, and I want to ensure that I get the word or the name of the woman correctly. It's the woman that drove the tent spike into the man's head in the Old Testament. I think it was Jael.
You'll have to tell me that story.
Jael. So Jael is a woman in the Old Testament. Looks like Judges, specifically, Book of Judges, who killed, I believe, a general in the army. And it's very funny. I went to a Christian school growing up. It was actually a homeschool. Well, it was a Christian school through which I was homeschooled. And during our graduation, we had to include our favorite verse in the yearbook. So I included this one. And for me, it gave me, I don't know if the word comfort is applicable here, but maybe a sense of power, knowing that a woman could assert fatal dominance over a man, because typically it's the other way around. So I liked that. That's going to make me sound crazy, but I actually still have that yearbook with the verse under it, and she drove the spike into his head. But I tend to like that story specifically.
Is that the verse, Nikki? What is the verse? What is that you quote? The quote on your yearbook is, she drove a spike through his head? Is that what you just...
Well, huh? Okay, so let's
hell
do
yeah.
hell yeah, right?
I was like, you go to that Christian school, girl.
So the King James says, Then Jael, Heber's wife, took a nail of the tent and took a hammer in her hand and went softly unto him and smote the nail into his temples and fastened it to the ground, for he was fast asleep and weary, so he died. Well, right under my name. And my parents were like, of course you would do that. So I like that.
I think that power is also a thing. People like to get power from strong animals, or the idea of them connected to them. And
Right.
My favorite animal is a
it goes
lion.
with ideas too. Like
Yeah.
there's an idea that I think is wrong in atheism movement, because they'll say, I don't have beliefs. That itself
I don't like that
is a belief.
Yeah.
To say I don't have beliefs, you believe you don't have beliefs, which is a belief.
Right.
And so I hate that. So, but it gives them power to feel like they can say that. But what they're really trying to say is, I don't have supernatural beliefs, which would be a different thing than no beliefs at all. I mean,
you have beliefs. Yeah.
And the reapplication of the stories over time, I could say for me personally, that is due to the continuation of tradition and a sense of peace, that these things remain the same, although the world does not. And for example, I'm not religious. Of course, I'm an atheist. But previously, my family would read, ever since I was a child, my dad would sit us down on Christmas Eve and read the story of Jesus and how he was born.
Same.
So yes, and it was this beautiful picture book. I think I won it at school or something, and they still have it to this day. So every year, I'm the one, even up until last year, before actually having to cut them off, unfortunately, and I'm going to miss that this year. But I'm the one who says we need to read the story. I'm the atheist, and I'm saying we need to read this. It's tradition. We sit down every night at during Christmas Eve. You know, my dad sits on the couch, and either my nephew or the youngest sibling, well, the youngest sibling's like, before my nephew was like 15 or so not sitting on his lap, but the youngest kid who was able to sit on his lap would sit there, and my mom would sit next to him, and he would read the story from beginning to end. And for me, that gave me a sense of tradition, a sense of peace, that no matter what had changed that year, no matter what catastrophes befell us, you know, no matter if Russia invaded or Trump was elected, that we could still sit down and read and have that tradition. And that gives me peace, not necessarily the story itself, but that gives me a sense of peace, a sense of belonging. I love it. The Christmas tree is lit. It's very nice. My mom has Jesus is the reason sign outside, and that's lit. And it's just all very traditional and very enjoyable. So I can understand the reapplication of those beliefs over time, and how there's a sense of peace and belonging and unity when they're told, especially in that manner with the family involved.
Do you think there's any way we're going to think there's a way of having those rituals and telling stories and creating that, having the space for those stories without them being Bible stories? Do you think that's ever even a case? Because I
just explain Bible because of my background. It can apply to any. But regarding the Bhagavad Gita, I actually really enjoyed that. I am not well versed in its history, but I did enjoy the story. I understand how, with, I believe, Krishna's expression through the Vishvarupa, if I'm not mistaken, at the end where he embodied all possible life forms.
Yes.
I thought that was very interesting. I like that a lot.
Because one life isn't better than another.
Yeah, it actually really isn't. But we're taught that. We're taught that through hierarchy, and I hate to. You're right. I mean, you're absolutely right. There's really no other way to say that. You're right. And in no way does the attainment of wealth or power change that.
Or knowledge.
Or not education, right?
Anything changes one's worth and one's value. Right. That's why horizontal power is what anarchism wants to do, because we believe that isn't just ethical, like the best thing to do for everybody involved.
Well, I do believe it is ethical.
It is. But it's the only thing that works. It's the only thing that has ever worked on this planet.
You know what? That's counterintuitive to me, because I have this mentality that you need to attain as many resources as possible, because if you don't, then it'll go to others and your family will be lacking. And especially
but that's also a reality under capitalism. It's not like there's the option of you could either do good and it'd be great. You know, where's the commune I can join? You know. There isn't. That's like saying, you know,
there might be, but it might turn out to be a cult, you know, eventually, because they're going to take your money and your woman, and eventually.
There are communes, there are ethical situations, but they do not advertise.
Yeah, of course not.
And some of them are set up like a homeowners association, so they even look like that on paper.
Really? Because the HOA is pretty.
Yeah, usually pretty totalitarian.
You don't want my dad to be the president of your HOA, okay?
Let me just tell you. I think that goes back to being ethical in general. Like I say, my one of the simple ethical things I think is that people own themselves, and a lot of morality comes out of that. Like, can women do what they want with their bodies? Do they own themselves? Yes. Well, then yes.
Can they do what they
Should the prostitution be legal? Is it their body? Yes. Well, then yes. Should drugs be legal? Is it the other people's bodies? Yes. Should there be the right to suicide? Is it their body? Yes. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't have any need to try to talk to people and say it'd be better if you didn't
support them in various ways.
But making it illegal to me is just, you're violating my basic principle that people own themselves.
They do, but it's also, I believe, even though we own ourselves, we're beholden to a social contract, and that social contract is based in the interest of keeping the human species going. So suicide and abortion are antithetical to that concept, and that's why I believe that people try to regulate it, even if it's not right. Because I do believe that, even as someone who's dealt with depression and anxiety, I understand the issue with suicide and how it does affect those around you. But that individual is in a state of distress, and although I don't advocate for it. And if you are, I always feel like I have to give this disclaimer: if you're dealing with it, definitely reach out for help. But it's the people that live that are the ones regulating it, because it's distressing to them.
I'm not saying that I'm like pro suicide. I'm saying
I don't think
you're saying that.
You're saying that they should have the right.
Suicide.
Right.
But like I said, I think
it used to be ritual. It used to be suicide wasn't always an option, but there was ritual for it. There was society participation.
Oh, really? That's murder at that point, right?
Decided that she's going to take the pills that she's stored up, and everybody's going to come say goodbye to her this weekend. We're going to have a meal, and she's going to go to sleep. That's been gone on forever.
Yeah, there's Totemism clans that I don't know if they still do it, but they used to have people, even elderly, just go off into the woods, either survive by themselves or die.
Shut them out, because this is what they want. This is what they chose to do, and everybody doesn't choose to do that. Not every old person. Okay, Mom, we don't have enough food, so hoist the old lady out on the iceberg. That's not how it happens.
It happens sometimes. Sometimes they might throw her off the iceberg. There are bigger issues there. I think for like the elderly, when I think of suicide, I'm not thinking of like euthanasia. I know that those could be similar and other times are intertwined. But when I'm thinking of suicide, I'm not thinking of an elderly person who's in pain and is trying to find peace, and their family accepting this and them, coming together to achieve that goal. I'm thinking of someone who is in a state of depression or sadness and is wanting to end it then, which to me, the participation of the community in that regard would more than likely result in them not wanting to end their life, because they would start to feel that love and inclusion, which depression is the result of not having those things in a lot of cases. So
a lot of violence is because of us being too overstressed, over depressed, over upset, when you feel like everything is failing, that's probably not the best time to make ethical decisions.
Right, exactly. And that's why you need to, and that's why I think the involvement of the family in that case would probably result in that feeling of support that gives that person that sense of control as they are now having others shoulder their burden. And so that's what I was thinking, not necessarily an elderly person committing suicide, but in some animal species, elderly people are sacrificed for the good of the group.
And sometimes the young or the weak,
But sure, they're eaten.
Yeah,
but it's also the case that
they can't feed them. Yeah, they'll eat them.
Yeah,
but it's also the case, that we have something more than in a sense, the animal kingdom is that we have group learning, and we have written texts that we can learn, continue to learn even from the bad choices, where they are more limited to a lifetime. We have the benefit of multiple lifetimes of knowledge in a sense.
And that goes back kind of that's what I thought of when Glenn was talking about the analogy with the forest running itself. I understand that with humans and the introduction of consciousness, theory of mind, and the ability to reason and separate yourself from your environment, I think that kind of throws a caveat in there that the forest is not self-aware. The animals are not self-aware. They're kind of forced in that regard to fall in line with whatever natural processes occur around them and within them. But with humans, we're able to reason. We are able to suspect based on our experiences what the future might look like. And that's going to motivate and change our behavior as a result to where we're going to try to manipulate the natural occurrences around us as we have. And I think especially that knowledge of the diminished returns of the environment, that's going to motivate our greed, inspire our greed. And that's why I don't know a lot about anarchy. I'm learning about it as we discuss it. But I don't know how realistic, especially with like 8 billion humans, I don't know how realistic. I know like in the small communes like that.
But 8 billion humans now are not under one government even. So they're already broke up into segments.
Yeah, that'd be difficult to do, I think.
No, but I'm saying
exactly. That's exactly right.
I'm just making the point that anarchism doesn't try to solve 8 million people working communally.
Oh, okay.
Anarchism is the belief in small communities all working within that 8 million.
That makes sense. I was like, that's a lot of people.
Like your bioregion has a thing that it does has everything that it needs to create all the energy, all the fiber, all the things that it really needs. You know why? Because it's a bioregion.
We still have to trade with external. For example,
anarchism is not against trade. It's not against, in a sense, working together. In fact, a lot of anarchists, to me, are still thinking in the lines of a federation of these group things. It's just the difference is a centralized power saying whatever I decide, no matter if it's ethical or not, that's how we're going to do things. And the difference is people at the ground level saying, like the fact that you have to say Black Lives Matter, that shouldn't be something that even has to be said.
Oh, I know.
But a lot of Black people don't even believe Black Lives Matter. So I think
but that's culturally handed down. That's
true.
An inherent.
Yeah, you're right. Like when they did the study with the black child who was, I believe this was in the 80s or early 90s, was given 2 dolls, one white and one black, and asked which one was pretty, and she chose the white one.
Yeah.
And I've dealt with that myself growing up, especially in the Southeast. And you're right, it is passed down. You're absolutely right.
Well, and also, to me, the easiest way is if you think of it this way. For me, at least, like one thing I try to do, especially since I've learned so much about the world, I try to think if I was born in South Africa, or if I was born in Central Africa, or if I was born in Asia, or if I was born in China, in a sense, or in Siberia, or in Europe, would I always think and feel the same? Hell no. So definitely these regions are doing different stuff.
But you wouldn't turn into a different person.
It would but experience is somewhat of what makes us the person. Yeah. Experience does. Like
the expression of it, not the person. The expression of it, right?
Because I'm not saying you become a different person entirely, but what we think of to me as a person is this little cognitive map we create, and we call it us. Because most people, if you logically thought, are you the same cognitive you, us, as you were at 3 years old, 7 years old, 15 years old, 30 years old, 60.
I contain it. The 3-year-old is the 3-year-old is inside the 6-year-old is inside the 9-year-old is inside the 15-year-old.
In a reality sense, yes, but those are in a sense different people. They're all these little different people. So I'm just saying, and those different people all have different experiences. So if that 3-year-old was raised in a real kind or a real hateful environment, that's going to change who that person is. I mean, I'm a high-functioning sociopath, not because I was born this. I had extreme child abuse, and then I became this. But even then, I have worked for years. I had like 20 years or so of counseling, and I worked on myself to become better and becoming an atheist, and also grasping anarchism and grasping axiology has helped me become a more moral, in a sense, less harmful individual.
Mhm.
But
That's interesting because only Jesus can help you become a moral.
I had Jesus and he was not helping. But speaking of helping, let's go ahead,
Might not
Cory.
be Jesus' fault then.
I've evolved. I always tell people,
There you go. I like that.
I'm not the thing abuse made.
Yes, I am not the thing abuse made, right? And the
That's
abuse.
a good affirmation. I'm going to include in my daily affirmations. I'm not the thing abuse made. Interesting.
So go ahead and Cory, and read the next section.
All right. Animism, belief in a perceived spirit world, passably by at least 100,000 years ago, the primal stage of early religion. To me, the animistic somethingism, you just feel / think there has to be something supernatural / spirit world, or feel / think things are supernatural or spirit filled. To Damien, animistic somethingism, you just think there has to be something supernatural or spirit world, or feel / think things are supernatural or spirit filled. Somethingism is commonly an unspecified belief in an undetermined supernatural reality, stated sometimes as spiritual but not religious, but to me is basically unrealized animism. There's a link here. Animism, a belief among some indigenous people, young children, or all religious people. And then, so then we're going to move on to totemism.
That's not my quote. That's actually an anthropologist that studies animus and wrote a book about grasping new animism today or something. Anyways, but
everything is alive when you're a kid. That's the great thing about being with kids.
That's
everything is alive. It has agency, and it's marvelous. I think it's just marvelous. But I would not want to live and try to work as with the 4-year-old's perception of
we do that at my work though. Like if a pump is being a jerk, we're like, that pump is being a jerk. It doesn't want to catch prime. It doesn't want to, work properly.
Sure.
we still do that.
But you're being hyperbolic. A kid would actually think the pump was being a jerk for real.
That's so mean.
He'll be mean to the pump. His mother loves him.
Right?
Okay, so then on to totemism. Belief that these perceived spirits could be managed with created physical expressions. Passably by at least 50,000 years ago, progressed state of early religion, a totem is a representational spirit being, sacred object, or symbol of a group of people, clan, or tribe. Totemism, as seen in Europe 50,000 years ago, mainly the Aurignacian culture, pre-Aurignacian.
I say Organation. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation either.
I'm just,
And so people know. Generally,
it's like, and next word, next sentence.
That's an actual, in a sense, culture, and it's a culture because of a type of stone tool used. That's what they call it, organization. They can tell they're the similar tribes or whatever, because they have a similar technology of stone tools. So, but a lot of people would hear the term Cro-Magnon. That's these people. Though I don't use that word because I like talking about the anthropology culture, because then you can understand their belief systems, their behaviors, their food. If you go look that up, click culture, you can find out how they actually were. And so I think that's really helpful. But also people need to understand these people were probably black or close to black. I mean, they would have been looking like African Americans, in a sense. They would not have been white in any way. So the first people to go to Europe, because it's important to understand it happened in Europe, and were totemists, was probably still looking, like they just came from Africa.
Probably Africans, because we're a culmination.
They had already, in a sense, intermingled with Neanderthals and got
so they
had
might
a
look
little bit of
African
different
American
skin color. They still were very dark, and so because the reason I bring this up is because a lot of people think of Europe as being like the origin or the area for white people. Well, the original Europeans were not white. Clarify that right there.
They weren't.
So
so the
I'm nice to run across people who know that. I just want to say thank you for being through, and that being said, and nothing else happened after that. I just want to say thank you to the three of you. There was nothing else said after that. It's just so delightful.
No, it's just true though. It's true.
So nice. Thank you.
Pre-Orignation, Chattel Peronian, Western Europe, mainly Spain and France, possible transitional cultural diffusion between Neanderthals and humans around 50,000 to 40,000 years ago.
Stop real quick there. So that culture, by archaeology, I'm just going to just explain, because I know no one's ever heard of this. So that culture is considered Neanderthal, purely. Although, reason they say the transition, because it's a new, so in other words, from, I think it's 230, but I don't know exactly, but I think it's a long time, from 100 and something or 230, all the way to 50,000. The Neanderthals did the same type of tools, almost.
Yeah, this is so
all of a sudden, they change culture. That's also about the time we interact with them. So that's also why I see that, to me, you see the Desovians start doing looks like totemist behavior, the Neanderthals start doing totemist behavior, and the humans start doing totemist behavior, the ones in Europe. In Africa, stays the same. So you could tell that up there, that's why it says Neanderthal and human. I'm not 100% sure if the Neanderthals didn't influence the humans or vice versa, or maybe, my real thought, both. Neanderthals gave us some of their ideas because we picked up their stone tool technology a little bit too, but we did it in a human way. And what they picked up was not their tools so much as they started wearing a lot more jewelry and started doing feathers in their hair more and started doing more expression behavior, which is more, closer towards, the culture and religion. So they changed. So 50,000, a whole bunch of changes. It's like 3 different humanoids start almost having a shared change in behavior. And we interacted with the Soviets, and the Soviets interacted with Neanderthals, and we interacted with Neanderthals. So they're all, and they interact with us. So to me, that's why I say 50,000, even though human-wise, it seems like we don't really get running into it really good until like maybe 45 to 40. That's when humans really, but it already is evident.
We're chasing animals too. I mean, both of those cultures and everything is us chasing animals,
right?
Migration routes.
Absolutely. That's
definitely every season is in the same place.
Yeah.
So you start to get those rituals and the gods of the place,
my opinion is there wasn't gods yet, and
it began to.
It becomes that, but that's a little bit later. But it comes out of totemism. Yeah, to me, but it has to have the animistic idea of any kind of supernatural anything. And then totemism gives it more like a substance or an entity or something to focus on, and then shamanism has the ability to supposedly go into the afterlife and do stuff or fight demons or sickness. So it's a little bit different, but go ahead and keep reading.
Okay, so then we got archaic origination or proto-origination, humans, Europe around 46,000 to 35,000, and origination or classical to early to late humans in Europe and other areas around 38,000 to 26,000 years ago.
And what they mean by those different names, they're all in a sense origination. They're all one culture that came from the Middle East, from Africa to North Africa to the Middle East, and from the Middle East into Europe through Turkey or something like that. But some of them went up into Siberia and come across through Russia. But anyway, so but it's the fact but mainly they went the more southern routes at first, and then later ones came over. Especially U5A, I think. But anyways, you have these different ones. I think this is also real important for the human totemism, I think, or inspired more of it. is because it wasn't just like one large group came up, met Neanderthals, and that was it. It's one group here, another group went here, another group went here. So one is over in Poland, one's in Germany, one's in France, one's in, almost in Spain. So you have all these different ones, and then they kind of end up in France and Germany, kind of together, and then Austria, and then Czechoslovakia, and then back to Russia, and then over to Siberia. So, and then China. So they're multiple of them are. So I see some of totemism as the us and them. It's that kind of a thing where because it's a clan. So there's somebody who's an us, or and someone who's an other. In a sense.
Well, literally Tiger Clan, Bear Clan.
Right. Oh, definitely. And I'm sure they definitely were connected to elk and bear and different stuff, because bears actually, it looks like it was worshipped first even by Neanderthals. But by 30,000, humans were making these little bear head stone tool looking things. They weren't used as tools. They're really more like religious or art. They look like little bear heads. But so I agree. And that's why I'm saying they're definitely with these clans going on. But it looks like the start of it, because at 50,000, there's a Desovian that has a headband, like a leader or something, and it's the size of it would fit a male head, so in a sense like a tiara, but the first tiara was actually a Desovian, not human, and it wasn't in a sense a probably a woman, that she was humongous. But anyway, so there's.
I'm gonna.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know. There could be gigantic women, but I'm saying what the archaeologists said about the sizes, because they find for the Desovian they only find a tooth, so they have to make judgments on what if that was in a sense connected to a head, what size would that be, and But anyway,
That's interesting.
But my point is, and they also have anywhere from 40,000 to 70,000. There's a bracelet that's the size of a female, and it looks like it has a hole in it. And I drew a picture of one of my art of a feather hanging out of it. It's certainly something, but it's this green bracelet out of a stone. I mean, and it's Desovians. So
that's cool.
I want
that.
Yeah,
I want that bracelet.
I know. But so, but my point is, so they're already doing this sort of ornamentation on themselves, and at 50,000 or something close to that. And the same thing with the Neanderthals, and then very shortly after humans. So to me, because the oldest human necklace thing, I think is 48 or 46 or something. I can't remember exactly, but it's old, but it in Russia. But it just shows that all these things. That's why I say 50, because that's a little bit less, but that's still it's in this general time. I think that all these cultures are changing. So I don't just see that in a sense totemism is limited to just humans. To me, I think that it's certainly there's new behaviors after 50,000 to all three humanoids.
It's certainly a way to organize the world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like if you feel like you had control over the world and had some kind of destiny, some kind of thing, and it's like if I can take this bear bracelet with me, I'll be okay, or I'll have good hunting. Just that attitude alone is worth carrying the bracelet, because you're calm, cool, and collected. You can make a better decision. You're okay you're peace and calm. You can be present in whatever it takes to be present, to make the arrow go straight, to get the kill, or to find the plant, or whatever that you would use. And
there's a Neanderthal grave of a female at 50,000, and there's I think it's a mountain lion paw, put in with the grave.
Because she was,
So I'm going back to what you're saying. I see that as a type, it's a type of, just like what you were saying. It's a powerful animal. Like you said, and they're associating with it. And also, I think that there's other female burials where they bury them with foxes and dogs and cats. I think it's this almost like when they talk about much later. I think that it's likely. That's like a familiar, or whatever, or something like
that. Spirit animal or something like this.
Something like that, probably more totemistic type of thing.
Maybe her name is derived from the cougar. Maybe her name meant cougar. And
Exactly. My point is just saying is that, but all this behavior happens about that time. This mass swing change at 50,000. You can really see after that till 40,000. There's a whole bunch of this new behavior, new everything. So. But then at 35,000, they make a female figure that looks like a basted chicken almost, but it's this little thing. But it was actually worn on something or hanging from something.
Fertility.
So, and there's more than one too. There's a couple of them that were made that have similar features, showing that it's not like a one-off.
Yeah, there's a reason why women were worshipped for the longest of anything. Because they make people, So there's a really, women have been worshipped for longer than anything else, longer than any god or patriarchy and everything like that. That's why the patriarchy had to come along and exist, because of the power,
I think that animals. To me, animals are the first gods, and it seems like animals might also be the first totems, even because women become one. Yes, the food. Women become one, but like I said, bear totems are at I think 60 and 50,000 till I think 40 something.
Yeah, I don't think we know.
And I was just saying too that, and there's like a 40,000-year-old, because the 35 is the female. I'm not saying that it's not important. I'm just making a comment that the totems seem to be male is definitely not there, but I mean there's a few that are made, but very, very rare. But so the first thing is I think. They're thinking there's a 40,000-year-old elephant. There's a 40,000-year-old, I think, kind of bison-looking thing, and there's maybe
those are big animals, though. There's
a cat.
Those animals do not. You cannot. One person cannot kill those animals. Those animals can kill you.
Oh well, yeah, true. Yeah, it's a big deal. So a big power or whatever.
Those animals. Yeah. You don't just shoot and that's yours. It takes the entire village to go get it. It
probably does. Yeah,
it's like wild dogs. Like wild dogs in the African savannah. That's how they kill in groups.
Yep. We're the same.
And lionesses.
Right. Okay, Cory, read some more.
Okay. Shamanism, belief that some special person can commune with these perceived spirits on behalf of others by way of rituals, possibly by at least 30,000 years ago. Shamanism is an otherworld connection belief to heal sick, communicate with spirits, and escort souls of the dead. Shamanism, such as seen in Siberia or Russia, Gravitan culture, 30,000 years ago. Gravitan culture, 34,000 to 24,000 years ago. Western Gravitan, mainly France, Spain, and Britain, as well as Eastern Gravitan in Central Europe and Russia. The Eastern Gravitans, which include the Pavlovian culture.
Right, and that one's actually more distinctly, they buried the first female shaman at like 28 to 25,000 years ago.
Female body.
What's that?
Female body.
Female body, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Well, yeah, I don't. Well,
these guys are dressing up as. I was
going to say,
who knows what they were dressing up as and what the shaman was and what the whole thing is. It's. I don't think it was
right. There's a triple burial, which I think is a sacred burial, where one guy is leaning over and put his hand in the crotch of the other one in the middle, and then the last one is facing down, and then they're all buried next to each other. And I think I have a feeling that it relates to the sun or the moon, like the three stages in a sense to them, like the crescents and the thing, or like the dawn and the dusk and the sun. So I think that there's a big thing that relates to that, because one is like leaning and relates to the other one, like also like if it was a mother, like the baby, like the moon in a sense, the baby when it's born, the mother when it's fat and pregnant, the moon, and then when it's older in a sense. But so because I know that 34,000 is the oldest moon calendar, and even NASA talks about it. So it's by the same cultures, the Gravitans. or the Gravitons.
And why would you need to count the moon?
Because you can pay attention to the animals. They're doing on seasons.
Women's fertility.
Well, yeah, fertility, definitely fertility, but also related to like what seasons things are.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah. The skinny moons and the wind to plant.
Right.
When to leave.
Right, yeah, exactly. When to stay, when to leave. Right. So it definitely it's in a sense can have non-religious, but I think it was also mixed with religion. I don't think
it's
there was
technology. Figuring that stuff out, when you look up and you see that there's no light, so you see that the snake in the sky, and how the snake moves through the year and the different things that are on the different sides of the snake,
Right. Right. So, but my point too is that I don't know that that person in the middle wasn't considered trans. They used to, like I'm saying, because they say male bodies, but at first they thought that the first person was intersex or something else.
Yeah.
And then before they first saw it, they thought the middle one was a female, like the mother of the two boys, or sort of a situation. But it wasn't. It was all three the same, male sex gender. But that doesn't mean that's what their real gender was to them.
Yeah, it's not what they did.
I don't claim to know that either. I just say that I think that whether it's a male or female, I think it's still related to the moon or the sun, the three stages. Because I think that because there's a lot of other, there's another one in France. It's 37,000 years old that has a lion, or has a bull, a vagina triangle, and then a cat. And both these animals are male. But the legs, one leg of each, is part of what goes down past the vaginal triangle, and almost like it would be like a woman's legs with these male.
So it's both. It's the yin yang. It's the best way they could do a yin yang.
Well, and later yin yang is pretty old too. It's at least I know 8,000 years old or 7,000 something. It's probably older, but I'm also saying it's also three. If you look at it, it's 1, 2, 3 equals 1, though. And I'm just saying that there's similar type of behaviors. I'm just saying so. Shamanism is still doing animistic things by looking at nature and making it, I think, magical in a sense. But that already started in animism, so it's not like shamanism invents it. I think it adds more detail to it, like the mythology sort of, or the belief system.
To codify how you're supposed to talk about it.
Right. So I think the animism kind of starts the belief. Totemism gives it more structure, and then shamanism starts to define the myths a lot more, or the concepts of how to interact with what's going on,
or how the role is used, whether it's used as a power to have control over the tribe, or whether it's the person who lives in the Totemism off in the mountains in the distance from somewhere, like the old wise woman, and that everybody goes to, or the
which later becomes like in the Greek the oracle.
Who knows?
You say the oracle, yeah.
What that role of that shaman was. I really probably don't think they were in the center of the town having dinner every night at a different person's house.
Oh yeah. But I also don't think that like paganism. I don't think they were leading congregations.
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't think. So I think it's not, especially like I said, the older ones. The ones 30,000 years ago, shamanism, and 30,000 years, even the same exact place, say in Siberia, and 30,000 years ago, then now, it's going to be a different shamanism. I mean, even if they it's not like it linear, just
vertically centered as opposed to horizontally centered. It loses its sense of place, its sense of bioregion, the local animism, the local totem, the local stories, the local pop myths and legends and things like that, and the shaman becomes ineffective because they becomes a weapon of the state or the organization or power or money or however.
Well, speaking of that, even in Russia, the goal to stamp out the indigenous shamanistic or totemistic or animistic beliefs.
Yeah.
I'm an anti-religionist, but that doesn't mean I desire to force people. I'm an anarchist too. I don't desire to force people not to believe something. I mean, or I just, I never would have supported doing
Anti-religion in the sense that it's used as a source of domination.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so I'm not against people having their belief. When people say they have a belief, I don't attack them because they have the right to that belief. I don't like, I'll say what I think about it or what, whatever, but
it's the dogmatic execution of the belief and trying to force others to align with it. That's where the problem arises. It's not the holding of the belief. It's the belief that, or the understanding that your belief is the dominant belief and others should believe as you do, or else they are outsiders and deserving of some type of mistreatment.
Mm-hmm.
That's
right.
Where
like I saw a totemistic video where they don't actually, I don't know. I was going to say they don't have gods, but I don't know that. I was thinking, no, they didn't say it. But they said was that these women, they were hitting them in the heads with machetes because they said that they were possessed with demons, that the women didn't actually want to be. The demon was taking them over. Yeah, this is not. It was.
Is that due to some type of inability to reproduce? Is that why they were being tortured?
I can't remember that fact of why exactly they were being. I remember there was I was kind of like traumatized by them doing this, and there was a video of it. It was kind of like.
So you were watching a video of someone actually doing that today?
Yeah, I'm not talking about like reading it. I watched it being done, and they asked them, "Why are you doing this? What do you know?" I was also thinking, would I sit there and film someone doing this?
Right,
randomly ask these questions like, what kind of a psychopath does it take to, or I guess you could be scared for your life to be standing there while. Anyways, it just I don't like seeing shit like that, and they really bother me. But it reminded me too that I can't a noble savages type of thing of thinking that anyone has a primitive belief must be better than an advanced belief of religion. And that helped me remember that, oh no, totemists can be terrible people too.
With every principle, there's a healthy use of a tool. A tool is just a principle is just a tool. There's a healthy use and an unhealthy use of the same idea. The use of God or spirituality can be a sense of comfort and moral to people who are really looking for a way to get out of a sense of depression or whatever like that. That actually may be a step up vibrationally or mentally or mental health with. But you can also use the same concept to make sure you have to regulate somebody's bodily physical movement through space to monetize it. Which is what the church does. Monetizes a lot, not all churches, but the institute. We're talking about like the roles of a shaman can be to extract or to expand health. Mm-hmm. And it's the same tools. You're going to use the same exact tools.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so like I said, I also know that they've been using in environmental stuff. They've been using totemist beliefs to inspire people to be more, in a sense, aware of. I'm just saying. So it's not like there's nothing that can be used positive.
Right. It works.
So, because they have this connection to the land or space or how it should be, taken care of or symbiotically not be destroyed.
Hoot, hoot, don't pollute.
Yeah.
I was going to say in the Western world, it seems like there's that people are reverting back to totemism and as they move away from the theistic beliefs, coming out of the Christian church, deconstructing from the Christian beliefs, because I think it has something to do with scientific advancement and people understanding their relationship to, I hate to say the universe because that sounds a little bit woo, but I guess the universe and
literally the universe.
Yeah, literally the universe. And
together and rolling along.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think in the fact that we are, in a sense, in the universe and we see ourselves as separate, just like we make the distinction, not the natural world. We make the distinction that we're not part of the natural world. When yes, we are.
Yeah, that's wild. It's so wild. Dualistic thinking. I'm a monist because I understand that the brain and the mind are the same, but we dualize in our relationship to the world in order to relate to it in that separation, because we have separate needs from what the world, like humans have similar needs, but human beings, we have separate needs from trees, what trees need, what animals need. In differentiating ourselves, we're able to pursue those needs. It's a natural selfishness, I would say. But I'm very grateful that the Western world is moving away from the limited theistic ideas and becoming a little bit more totemistic or even animistic in some situations. But it's almost kind of like a trend, kind of, I would say.
Look, evangelicals aren't giving up easily, are they? Control of the narrative, the very hardcore right religious, the way things are, my way or the highway.
Nationalists.
This is the Christian.
I was going to say, I think it's getting. They're definitely trying to. No,
they're not going away. They're cornered, and they're getting more and more violent.
Yeah, they're aggressive. They're fighting for their survival. And it's very interesting how the Republican Party is becoming synonymous with Christianity. I think it's helping the defeat of Christianity that's the case.
Mask off, baby. Mask off.
That could be.
Well, especially in Georgia. But it's very interesting that, and I'm not really a fan of like the political landscape in the United States, but it does surprise me that the Republican senatorial candidate, Herschel Walker, was so successful and actually did get more votes than Warnock. That's a little bit concerning. A lot of bit concerning. I would assume that Warnock, but it's not because of Walker himself, even though he is not well-versed in political ideologies or really able to hold a cogent conversation with anyone. It's because of who he represents and who's pulling his strings, because he's just a marionette puppet. And
good looking.
It's about
charismatic.
He's not good looking and he's not charismatic. Like at all. He is not charismatic. He sounds almost like he has brain damage as an athlete. And not that all athletes sound that, or football players specifically sound that way, but Herschel Walker is not well spoken. He's not articulate, and he's not very educated or intelligent. But it's because of who's pulling his strings and who has the most money and is able to push him as a representative of the Republican Party. And people are aligning with that title, not necessarily the value of the Republican, whatever. I mean, both parties provide value, but it's what he represents. It has nothing to do with his abilities.
Yeah, those are features, not bugs.
Yeah, they're features. God, they're not even appealing features. I'm really confused.
But I also don't think that just because someone is not super intelligent, that doesn't bother me. I care more about the way that they behave and what they stand for. And it's so
that's true.
It means not that much to me that someone can be the great orator or not. Because
but to be
you can
a
have great orator for Hitler. I mean, great orator actually doesn't really impress the shit out of me. But think he's just not a good person. He wants to take away people's rights, and he wants to, infringe on us not having some sort of a nationalistic, a government. I mean, I'm against what he stands for.
Well, there should be some element of intelligence in education to represent a large group of people on the national level, and that's my level of concern. Not his ability to speak. That is just that is concerning, but that is a representation of his lack of intelligence, which I think and I believe is important. You need to be well versed in various topics. You need to have a certain level of experience. He's an athlete. He's never served in any political office. He doesn't have a lot of cognizance regarding what's necessary to be successful in political office. And his inability to speak correctly is representative of that. And that's why I brought it up, because it's a larger issue. It's representative of a larger issue.
Well, I don't think he's an intelligent person, but like I said, you can be well read, which he's obviously not. But I mean, or even a great thinker, which I think he's not.
That's the problem.
Even if you describe those things in and of themselves, I haven't read a lot. Even if one could say I haven't read a whole lot of books, I don't have a whole lot of initials after my name. I don't, and you could still be articulate, concerned about the issues, well understand your neighbor, and
I agree.
And be able to operate as a senator. I think there are a few housewives I've known who could serve as better senators that are more organized and understand what that is going on than I know of some senators I could probably,
and that's a problem.
And that's a problem, because the roles, as we were talking about roles, the role isn't to govern. The role is to extract, just like the shaman, the modern shaman and the politician and things like that. Because the roles are, you can always tell who shamans are working for.
To extract, because I would say, depending on the definition of the word extract, that a lot of governments are successcul at extracting. They're successful at extracting resources.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It doesn't have to be set up that way, though. It doesn't have. That isn't a natural progression of growing crops and like having a bioregion that we have to have an oppressive government. That isn't a natural outcome. Somebody has to want that, do it, make sure, and put in the work and the resources to go actually physically do it. It doesn't just naturally happen like itself. Like if you plant a tree, go on whether you watch it or not. You come home from your vacation to your mom's house and your garden has kept going. It didn't stop because you stopped looking at it. Now you got weeds and all this other stuff going. So it's like, but that's not how government works. If you do a government, it collapses. If you don't continually putting energy and information and attention and stuff on what you want to happen, it stops happening.
I think regarding the trees and like agriculture as it's progressed, the goal of humans isn't necessarily just to keep the trees growing. It's to manipulate the tree's growth, to accelerate the tree's growth, to maximize the tree's output as a result of growth, in order to attain more resources, to attain more resources to trade with others, and therefore attain more resources overall. And I think that's where the human interest comes in.
Right. So we can have a happier life and work less, and everybody would have. And there's
some people work less.
Then you just say, what do you work?
Well, that's capitalist design.
What are your values? More. Damon's values again. What are your values?
Yeah, but the value here, so
yes, what we're living in.
That's personally, it is as a result of capitalism. And I was raised in I had a quite privileged upbringing. I did have both parents in the home. My father made six figures. He was educated. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. We had the privilege of having one parent at home all the time. So I'm not. Okay, so it's not from a state of privilege that I say this, but it's a state of the understanding that hierarchically, I am less than certain people at the top. And that makes me want to fight to get more because of it. So the concept of, like, for example, anarchy and communism, they contradict with my ideas of wanting to get more and attain more, because I don't like being less than, and I can't stop capitalism. So I think we talked about this before, Damien and Cory. I'm a capitalist because that's what the options are, not because I actually think it's like
evaluated all the options.
Ethical or well, the options I want. Listen, I feel like with communism, there's a limit to the amount of resources that you can get because you are sharing them with others, and it is a more egalitarian setup. Sure. But that's not how our world actually operates. That's not how Homo sapiens behave overall. Well, not that there aren't individuals.
I mean, I would argue that that's an imposed system.
Yeah.
Like it is imposed, but right? I can't change that, and because I can't change it, especially in America. Well, I mean, healthcare is expensive.
Once again, anarchists are not saying the world is changed. The anarchists are saying the world needs to be changed, so it is in order.
That's what I'm saying. It's not going to, though. The people who are sharing resources aren't going to take over the people who are hoarding them. There was a time when no one would think that you can survive without slave labor. You can survive without slave labor, but my point is not. Actually, no, you can't. And the way I'm saying that is not that
system where somebody has to do the work so that you don't have to.
Yeah,
it's like when people say they're capitalists. You say you're capitalist. To be a capitalist to me means that you somehow own someone else's labor. Do you have employees where you're getting
Own the
their
product
portion.
labor.
That's how I have wealth. That's how you build wealth, is by
That's how
exploiting other
capitalists
people's
build wealth.
labor, paying
Exactly.
them minimum wage, and taking the larger portion. Yeah, that's my goal. Like I want to own businesses. I want to capitalize, and not in a malicious sense, because on the flip side of that, people do need resources to survive, and I want to provide them with that, and hopefully, and take care of my employees better. But I still understand that I can't do it all. And in order to run a large enterprise, I do need the labor of others who are more suited to do that labor than me. There are a lot of, like, I can't work a machine. I don't, those things. I would blow up the whole factory. So there are people that I could hire to do that in order to provide the supplies and be able to capitalize and take care of my family and myself. Because even though I did have a privileged upbringing, there was a squandering of resources. And as a result, my siblings and I are behind quite considerably. And I want to resolve that, because there's a lot of stress that comes to being behind financially, especially in America, where everything is so fucking expensive. Excuse my language. But
once again, that's because capitalists want to make the money, not because things
Yeah.
actually have to be expensive.
Yeah,
It's like a lot
they
of
don't.
medicines. If you look at the prices of medicine in different parts of the world, it's not equal. It's
No.
not
especially
like this
insulin.
universe.
So you're talking about the difference, I think, between, like, I think all of those things that you said, hiring people to skilled labor to create the things and create a product that the world needs, and that's great. But that isn't capitalism. Capitalism is taking all of the resources and producing with it, hiring people to do it, and taking all of the profit. It's work for profit, not for, like, please.
There has to be shared profit in order to incentivize people to work.
There would be, but your workers don't have shared profit. They only have the labor that you give them, and you aren't even required.
How would a person, and I guess maybe I'm misunderstanding, if a person only had the labor that you give them, they wouldn't be able to pay their rent or pay their mortgage.
That's what's happening, right?
Why do they have rent? Yeah, the Cory just made it. Cory just said it. So what? So the landlord doesn't work either. So I am now working to pay a landlord, so I don't on the street, because I can't accumulate enough wealth to buy my own house, so they don't need a landlord.
So you're not saying that there's no resource. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, you're not saying there's no. I guess I'm trying to understand. Of course, there's limited profit sharing. I'm not saying that's what I don't think that there's no profit sharing at all. Right. I think it's very limited to where it prevents people from being able to ascend the strata of, social.
So the benefit of ascending this strata is what?
Say that again.
The benefit of you said ascending the strata is
more
what?
Resources, more power.
Right. So you're healthier,
more comfort. Yes, you're
your family is stronger. You worry less and everything like that.
Absolutely.
How do we structure society in which, because everybody's the same way. That's the human condition, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how do we organize ourselves in a region to make sure we use the resources that everybody gets to feel that way, in a way that the result is everybody has that, and the requirement for earning that benefit is human, not.
I don't think everybody wants that, because
right, they don't.
Yeah, I don't even know necessarily if I want that, because I feel that I can't take. And maybe there's something I'm missing, because there might be a more communal sense to this, to where my family is okay because we are receiving more help as a result of having level.
Think of it this way: is it wrong to own slaves?
Well, of course.
Why?
But I'm not talking about slavery. I'm talking
maximize profits that way. It would be the best.
Yeah.
At what point? Think of this: at what point of paying someone a labor wage is it still slavery? $1?
That's a good question.
A quarter? $5? $10? How much of their value are you taking of the labor they produce? In other words, like slavery is 100%. So what past that becomes ethical?
To be honest, I'm not sure, because I would say even the minimum wage, and even as someone who does, well, there are changes coming in the mortgage industry that are going to limit my income. But as someone who does make a decent amount of money, I would say even I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure. I don't think it's right to exploit a person to the point where you're not sharing resources with them, because I believe, as you said, it was a human condition that everyone wants to be able to provide for themselves and those they care about. I feel, because I wouldn't want someone to do that to me, I don't feel it's right to do it to others.
Right.
But I would say that I want to ensure that my family is cared for. It's more of like, I live in this system. I don't know if I could change it. So because of that, I want to be proactive in getting those resources.
But so instead of changing the system of slavery, we say it's okay as long as it benefits me, is what I'm trying to get you to think. So
I don't think that's true, because slavery would benefit me, but it's not okay.
But not paying someone their full labor, to me, is a form of slavery. It's wage slavery.
I wonder what full labor.
That's wage slavery.
Right. Well, sure. Minimum. Oh, yeah. So minimum wage is unacceptable.
And minimum wage is, they would actually like it to be less and have every problem, including Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats, every problem of raising it. They can talk all the shit they want. They should be screaming it from the rafters. I mean, people are starving. The fact is, like you said, though, Nancy Pelosi had, I think it's 230 million or something, or 130 million or something. Multi-millionaire, if nothing else, right?
Sure.
And
runs the government.
Like I'm saying, so she did care for her family. But I think that is the behavior, though, that doesn't. If she also had to live off minimum wage or even $15 an hour and didn't have that surplus, would she still be so willing to say it's not a priority right now?
No, and that's the problem, I feel. And that problem that I agree with, that you guys are saying, that there are so few people that hold the surplus, and the wage gap, or, the income gap is growing. But because I feel I can't change that, my mentality is to ascend. And I feel like
that's
I don't
understandable.
know.
I can relate to that. That's a normal reaction.
Yeah, it's kind of because it's like I could put my efforts towards trying to change a system, or I could put my efforts towards trying to maximize the system, and I only have so much time.
I live in a society,
Yeah, exactly. We all live in a society.
I have bank accounts. I run a business. I pay. I've Bearded Lady production. I have a production company. I'm in New York City. I used to run an East Village party once a month, and that is in a bar. That is no joke. Funneling a whole bunch of resources and organizations and stuff like that, speakers and everything like that, an all-day event. So I know about and I really, really appreciate it. And in fact, I balance checkbooks for a living. I'm a spreadsheet junkie, and I balance 3 checkbooks for a living that run about $5 million through them every month.
Oh, God bless you.
I fundamentally understand, money and finances and how it all works. See, what I'm talking about is the unions are the step, I think, where you're going with this. It was like, oh, how do I make sure that me and my family are taken care of? Because I've set all this up and I organize and manage it, but I want everybody to get ahead and have the same, provide steps out, right? Provide a way out of the pool. You have a pool, but there's steps out of the pool, right?
Yes.
From the deep end of the pool, you can get shallower and shallower and get out of the pool. So you want to do that for your employees, you want to do that for your community, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
The idea that unions came about. It was like, all right, we're doing all the work. You bought the resources because you do the things. We're the skilled labor, and you'll want our skilled labor.
Right. There's a
valuable because you need it. It's wheat or peanut butter or bird clocks. I don't know. So we have that resource, and we want to do it to the world, and then we pay the work. The system, like you're talking about, is how do I manage paying and doing this rollout of benefits and inclusion with my workers and not have to be at a disadvantage, because there are people who go broke in business because they have to pay their employees, they have to pay the rent, they have to pay, and they make less than their employees because that's
often you're talking about petty bourgeois or people that are small capitalists. Small capitalists,
compressed labor and slavery and stuff like that. So you can go either way. You can be that nice. You can be the person who's doing everything for the for your community and stuff. But you can flip it. The other side of that coin is the person who's in that situation who is cranking the vice.
And that's not my goal. I would love to be able to provide a safe and living wage. I don't even like to say living. I want people to be comfortable and be able to have more than what's necessary to survive.
Right. So you're in a sense not a capitalist. You're just saying that in a capitalist system, you have chosen to try to survive.
Not just survive, to thrive as well. Yeah. To thrive. I want vacations. I want to see the world, because thriving is.
Thrive. And I like.
Yeah, I want to thrive.
But it's like it reminds me
of.
There's a statement from a socialist that I like that he said, we can either have a few drink champagne or all of us drink water. And I do think that is something that ethically, for me, that's why to me it's an ethical thing. But I'm also a value theorist, so things
but a lot of people, I was going to say, but a lot of people like champagne.
I'm saying my point is, he was saying is there are a few elites can have champagne and all of us have nothing, or we can all drink water. And I think that we have to be ethical in that way of saying that can I get big by stepping on everyone else's head? Yeah, a lot of people do it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But is that the way I should be doing something?
Karma.
I have to, but that's like saying I have to fight. Okay, I have to fight. But how much of it at a certain point am I not just hoarding and not fighting?
Hoarding is, okay, so like generational wealth, I think is important because you don't just want you and your family currently to be successful and comfortable. You want your kids to be as well. And even though I don't plan on having children naturally, I still want to adopt and provide that luxury for other children so they can have that long-term generational wealth. I feel is important. So this is such an interesting.
Most of the generational wealth now came from slavery. It came from wars. It came from imperialism. Absolutely.
Yeah, it did.
The generational wealth that's currently here, a lot of it is from stealing from others.
Of course, and that's a problem.
Generational. I don't think you can legally do it, but we call it legal because they had power. And might makes right, or manifest destiny. We'll just go take it all. It doesn't make it right, though. That's what I'm saying. But Cory, let's read some more so we can get.
I was gonna. At some point, I was going to interrupt and say, we're a little off track.
Yeah.
But
this is society. This is why the society is developed to answer these questions. It was like we're grappling with this. What do you do with somebody like we talk about shamans? How do you do with you see the building up of wealth just as the shamans? You can see the society changes when you start to concentrate wealth. Society.
I think that was the segue. Yeah, that was the segue.
Change when you move from a horizontal sharing mentality to an extraction mentality. So would you like to continue?
Right. So that happens in
extraction.
paganism. Yeah. To me, that happens in the beginning of paganism because I see paganism is very connected to agricultural, evolution. So when that happened, that's what changed shamanism into paganism. Because in a sense, like even if you look up Norths had totemistic warriors and they had shamanism. In fact, Odin, I think originally was a shaman or is related to and wants to keep shamanism. So, so that shows you that those beliefs were older, and it's what in a sense, like I'm saying, is it changes into, but it's not like it disappears. We just call it priests, or instead of, just it's like
just someone restructured.
In other words, like you might call someone a witch doctor if they're totemistic and it's a shaman that they're talking about because they don't use the word in a sense shaman. That's it. But behavior wise, that's kind of similar, or like a medicine man or whatever, or a medicine woman or whatever.
Today's term is, I think, a tech entrepreneur. I think that
Mark Zuckerberg.
The modern shaman is the tech entrepreneur.
Like Elon Musk.
Well.
Yeah. That was collective, and that made that funny.
Wow, I had a lot more respect for shamans until you just brought that up.
I know, right?
All right, so we are at We were just talking about the Pavlovian culture, 31,000 to 25,000 years ago, which was a variant of the Gravitian that existed in the region of Moravia in the Czech Republic, northern Austria, and northern Poland. With the oldest shaman burial around 28,000 years ago was a woman, with the oldest portrait carving found nearby. And there's a quote here. The shaman is, above all, a connecting figure, bridging several worlds for his people, traveling between this world, the underworld, and the heavens. He transforms himself into an animal and talks with ghosts, the dead, the deities, and the ancestors. He dies and revives. He brings back knowledge from the shadow realm, thus linking his people to the spirits and places which were once mythically accessible to all, according to, that was anthropologist Barbara Meyerhoff. Damien calls all religions after agriculture and related to it paganism. Animism comes first, then totemism, then shamanism, then goddesses and gods, i.e. paganism, which had a mix of it all: animism, totemism, shamanism, with gods added, making it paganism. So paganism is an early organized nature-based religion, mainly like an evolved shamanism with gods, passable by 13,000 to 12,000 years ago. Damien's thoughts on the evolution of gods. So animal protector deities from old totems / spirit animal beliefs come first to Damien, 13,000 to 12,000 years ago. Then women as deities, 11,000 to 10,000 years ago. Then male gods around 7,000 to 8,000 years ago. Then moralistic gods around 5,000 to 4,000 years ago. And monotheistic gods around 4,000 to 3,000 years ago. So to Damien, the male god seems to have either emerged or become prominent around 7,000 years ago, whereas the now favored monotheism, quote-unquote, male god, is more like 4,000 years ago. At the same time as the rise of the male god 7,000 years ago, there was also the rise of violence, war, and clans to kingdoms, then empires, then states. It's all connected back to 7,000 years ago, and it moved across the world. Furthermore, the female goddess seems to have either emerged or become prominent around 11,000 to 10,000 years ago, or so, losing the majority of its prominence around 2,000 years ago, due largely to the now favored monotheism male god that grows in prominence after 4,000 years ago.
Right, because if you look at it, there really isn't a monotheism that's with a female god. It's all male gods. In fact, even someone said before that some Hindus or whatever practice their religion with a female deity. There's 4 different branches, I think, of Hinduism currently that are the main branches, and one of them is female. The other 3 are all male. But even the one
here, Lakshmi. Kali.
Yeah, I top of my head, I can't remember which one exactly, but I think it could be Kali. But I
Kali subdued Shiva, so I would say
could be Shiva.
Kali Shiva.
I can't remember, so I don't.
Desmond.
I like Kali.
There's a lot of facts, and I don't. On top of my head, I don't remember every single one. Well, that's why I try to show people too is that there's certain things I'm more confident about, and other things I'm less confident about. A lot of times it's little details because I just so much I can't remember. But
of course,
but anyway, so the point though I'm saying is that even though that female, because I wrote a blog about it because I was arguing with the Hindu, and I showed him that even that deity still has male deities, so it's really not monotheism, even though it's kind of henotheism where it's mainly in a sense the one female deity. It has these other things connect to it. But really, I mean, Christians do that too. They call it monotheism, but yet they have the Jesus.
Jesus sits on the right-hand side of the Father.
Right. And then the Holy Spirit, which is obviously supposedly something separate of both of those.
And all the same. Yeah.
Right. So I think that sometimes our opinion that monotheism has to be really monotheism. Yeah.
Well, that's why I like Advaita Vedanta, because it says all of that. There isn't two. There isn't two things going on here. You can be at different stages of your personal health and maturity and understanding what all it is, one thing, nature, whatever we call it. It's just all one thing. You can call it God, you can call it whatever you want to, but it works.
Well, doesn't the Bhagavad Gita say that all the other gods are just lesser avatar representations of the deity?
He said appear in different faces. I think he uses the different.
But my point is, I'm saying is so. That's not a just like some beliefs that are similar in the Americas, say like the Great Spirit.
Yeah, and even Muhammad said to every tribe comes its own savior. God has sent to every tribe the teacher to tell the truth. So it's not, Muhammad didn't say you have to go through me. Hindus don't say you have to go through me. The only thing is one small branch of Christianity says you need to get the tattoo or you're going to be tortured forever. And I get to start torturing you now if you don't do this.
Well, actually, all religions that are in positions of power have done that. I agree with you. That's not always because the religion can say different things in a holy book or groups of holy books.
Yeah,
so I mean, what I'm saying is because even like Buddhism did terrorism acts in Myanmar. Yeah, so it's not like, and like I said, those down in New Guinea, Papua New Guinea is where I saw the video of those Totemists, whacking those women in the head with machetes. So
I've seen people ritually,
that's why I try to
crucify themselves. People ritually crucify.
Right, but that's why I try to be when a lot of atheists I feel like generalize really quickly, and that's why I try to be more fine-tuned. This specific thing, that specific thing. I try to be a little more because I feel like one, it's just more honest position of what the reality of a thing. Like you could say all religions are toxic, but not all toxic in the same way, not always toxic at the same time or in the same
people.
So, and that's why I differentiate clearly on my Twitter page. I say Christianity and specifically dogmatic Christianity is what I rail against.
Right. No, that's you're on the show, aren't you?
Yeah, I write.
I must have liked something about what you say, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So I value Glenn as well. So I value your input, and that's why I wanted you to hear, and also why I care that you have a larger exposure.
Exactly. I really appreciate this because I told you I was actually, I started with Why We Believe in Gods. I'm currently reading The Faith Instinct and bought some other anthropological texts, but actually our textbooks when I went to the bookstore this past week. And I want to learn as much as possible about this. And this is really conducive to that goal. So I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it.
But to me, it helps because then we get a more grounded, nuanced, which it really is, nuanced opinion of religion as a global phenomenon. And not just our own personal experience. Because like there's a bunch of atheists that say a statement, you'll become an atheist if you read the Bible. Well, I don't know how that works for someone who's an animist or a totemist or someone who believes in the Great Spirit or somebody who believes in the Bhagavad Gita but doesn't believe in the Bible. I mean, it's not that
I don't even encourage that. I don't encourage that at all. Like if you read the Bible, you'll become an atheist. More than likely, you'll leave Christianity. But the journey to becoming atheist, that's more nuanced.
I read the Bible twice before I was an atheist, so it didn't do that to me. I agree, it did change my view of Christianity.
I read it a lot. Yeah,
it changed my view of Christianity. I realized I don't know if Paul and Jesus are preaching the same message.
They're not.
So
they're not. Yeah.
I started going.
I've ordained it, and two systems. They are not teaching the same thing.
No, I agree. They're not
into the alignment with the state.
Well, and also Jesus was saying that women should learn, teachings, and Paul is saying they should ask their husbands.
No,
I mean, it's like,
what if you don't have a husband?
Yeah, well, I guess you don't learn.
The parables that they say this character Jesus, they tell of this character Jesus. He heals more women than he heals men.
Oh,
and the social classes of the people that he heals are all lower class.
Well, and he even defends the woman going to be stoned, to death.
And so, what did he say?
That was Mary Magdalene, wasn't it?
He says, none of you have the right to kill anybody because you're all just the same.
But he said, who is without sin? You cast the first stone. But I'm just making a comment. But I was just saying, I don't ever agree with. I never tell women to read the Bible and that you'll become an atheist. That also would mean that really, if you took that logic as true, it also should mean if you read any holy book, you'll become an atheist.
True.
Right.
That's the in a sense the implied claim. It feels like, and I know that can't be true either. But I do think that when you read the books, then you start to have the book's understanding, which is a lot of confusion, and not a certain church's persuasion understanding. You know, like I said, if you're a nationalist Christian, you're certainly different than ones that are an anarchist Christian.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Now, wow, an anarch. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, they have anarchists.
I've never heard that phrase.
Oh yeah, Christian
you
anarchists.
might enjoy a woman named the Peace Pilgrim, called herself the anarchist, an anarchist Christian. You might look at the Quakers too. A lot of them explicitly call themselves anarchists.
Yeah, because they believe that Jesus' teaching was anarchist.
Yeah.
Wow.
Not the church's teaching. I'm talking about from the
What the life that Jesus was asking us to live.
Right, because he said sell everything you have, give it to the poor.
Right.
And he helped prostitutes, and he helped tax collectors, and he helped
All right. He healed people on the Sabbath. He healed women on the Sabbath. He touched unclean women in the street in front of the priest.
Well, he let a woman wash his feet
Amazing.
with her hair.
I know.
Whoa, that's just kinky. That's not even...
That stuff is expensive. We can sell that. What are you washing your feet with this stuff? You know?
Oh,
and he said,
right, but my point is, so I agree with you that so when you look at that and you look at Paul, I realized they can't be treated the same.
No, they're not the
It's just
same
absolutely
no.
something is gone gravely wrong here. So I didn't become atheist, but I did believe that I needed to not follow Paul. And that's what
The same
impression of yeah, that dude had his own. But then I wrote a thing before that says how Paul and Jesus are different. Many times Paul says, "This is my thought, not God's. This is my opinion. This is what is the general thing we do." He had many times, but everybody just figures it's coming from Paul. It comes from God.
Yeah.
But I don't think Paul meant for his letters to the churches to be written and studied forever.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Doctrine.
I don't think so.
Channel doctrine for the, so I think the Nicene says, I like this guy's blog. This is good.
Yeah. No, this is part of our religion now.
Right,
this opinion works, for what I need.
This Manosphere blog is now part of our religion.
Manosphere. Andrew Tate.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Paul of Tarsus was the Tate of his day.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Cory, read some more.
That's a good point.
So
don't tell Andrew Tate that.
I know.
Yeah,
that's not a compliment, actually, Mr. Tate.
Yeah.
You'll see it as a compliment. Didn't he convert to Islam recently?
I think so, yeah.
That works for him.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So paganism, early organized religion, possibly at least 13,000 to 12,000, up to 5,000 years ago. Paganism as a primal state of organized religion is 13,000 years ago. Paganism as a proto-state of organized religion is about 10,000 years ago. And paganism as at the origin elements leading to the progressed state of organized religion, mythology formalized, is around 7,000 years ago. Paganism as a developed stage of organized religion is around 5,000 years ago.
The reason I broke that up is for people to grasp that it's not like paganism came and never changed. It evolved as things were happening. So it doesn't start in a sense capitalistic and super hierarchical, but it starts to become that and mix together with it to where the goddesses and gods eventually by 5,000 worship the state or say that they give the state power to go and kill people and the right to slavery and the right to capitalistic power or whatever. That's not how, with 13,000, that's not what they were, but eventually they got now. And this is the thing too, is that like me and Cory and our other video series we're doing about showing Mesopotamia going from just loose clans in a sense to state empires and kings and everything. And what you understand is that the state is also itself evolved, boom, 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 and built on top of each other and learned. So it it's not like everything happened boom like that. In other words, what we get to, it's like the Bible. Even we get the Bible today as this package, but everybody inside the story of the Bible did not own a Bible.
Can you imagine thinking that that's just the book that's been there for like the whole time?
Oh no! If you ask some Christians, it has been.
But I don't know if I address that. It's funny, but I address that because there's some people that seem to perceive that way or think that I talk in that way when I say religion is this, that somehow every single belief in these humongous, mythologies were all. No, they got going and then they started changing and started developing. That's the point, is the evolution part that people don't grasp. I address the evolution of religion to try to show it's not all or nothing. It didn't happen all at once. It didn't happen the same exact thing everywhere. It slowly evolved. And then these things got bigger and more power. Because by 5,000, I say one of the big things that changed is religion for the first time gets a military. This is a big deal. Because
that's huge.
Because all of a sudden, because
the
state is the religion. The head, like a pharaoh, was in a sense the high priest of the religion. Mm-hmm. So, in a sense,
just like in Britain,
this hierarchy
or England,
is formed and established. That religion and hierarchy. In fact, hierarchy means the sacred rites or whatever. The word references religion. Hierarchy, you go look it up, just the standard word references religion. It's a religious behavior, this hierarchy. And like I said, it's when, that's why I call it organized religion, because paganism in a sense had a looser form and it kept getting more and more evolved, but a looser form of this hierarchy. But it's really not until 5,000 when they put the state, they put the hierarchy system, and then the person who's the king is the top priest of the priests. In a sense, the top of the hierarchy, that's when you really see religion change. But it makes sense too, because once there really was this focal point of this one person can say what the religion is, just like what the one tried to do, and he tried to make it into almost monotheism by the worship of the sun god or whatever, that, and then they call it the heresy when he tried to do that. Aten, that's right, and the Aten, tried to the pharaoh tried to do that and tried to say that his wife was also a deity, and he was, they were both from divine, lineage or whatever.
Everybody knows they were aliens. Everybody knows that.
So my point is, though, the structures go together. That's like when people talk about, we need to have separation of church and state. The state started with no separation.
Yeah.
That was the norm. That was the absolute antithesis. And then later, people try to say, oh, wait, we need to have removal of this. But that was always the way it was.
Have you read, Damien, have you read the book Authority, A Sociological History by Frank Ferretti?
No.
Because you just gave the introduction for it, pretty much.
Well, I also, like I know Cory knows, I haven't read as much like philosophy or even people explaining some of the anthropological stuff.
He talks about that. I've lectured at the Left Forum and taught on this. He goes, that's exactly what he says. He says it starts with shaman, and the shaman was everything. He was the father, he was the military, he was God, and she was God, and then the roles start splitting up. And the first split is, like you just said, the military. Is the violence is carved.
Well, yeah, the violence definitely starts before the state. The violence leads to the state.
Yes, and then yes.
But the violence wasn't 100% religious. I'm saying once
it's carved out.
Yeah, it was carved out. Once you get the state, then the state now uses religion. So, like when atheists say, the religion is used to control or use the stuff. Oh, absolutely. At that point. Absolutely. And then that justifies why I can take this person's land. Well, God gave me that land. So
divine doctrine. It's written into the Pope's right of divine doctrine. It's written down.
That's what I'm saying. So that's why I say that religion changed. That's why I classify everything after 5,000, even though it's still ultimately paganism. It's a different kind. This is not like that stuff.
No.
The stuff, older stuff. So, of course, as we know, all over the world, there's different forms of paganism. Not all of it ended up with the the version that happened in the Middle East or Egypt. Because even there was a long time before true kings happened, in a sense, in Europe, where that happened a lot earlier, in a sense, where you got these state powers and controlling vast areas or empires or whatever in the Middle East first.
They're called warlords.
Well, they were warlords, yeah. Then later they turned into something more than that, but yes.
Yeah.
But even the problem is we should call the empires warlords also, because especially like we were talking about, there almost is no history of the Sumerians that didn't involve war. Like almost every other year, or every couple of years. They're just it's not non-stop war.
I know. What are you allowed to record? Who's recording? Who wants to? What's the purpose of having the tablets and everything? It's to make sure that you keep your grudges and your stuff,
Well, and land, because they would put boundary stones. They put the stone with this carvings on it. This is our land. And so then another person would like, yeah, but I want that. That has a river there, or that's a thing, so they start fighting over, like you talked about, resources. But
Omar and his scroll, he took this scroll around, and every land he went into, he rolled it out on the clay and says, "This is the law."
Right? Yeah.
I own you now, and this is the law, and you can read it right there.
Not if you're a woman.
Women don't exist. So.
We're not allowed to read.
The 4,000 is the first comment that mentions women as having rights. Although that also in Hammurabi and stuff later, also he talks about women having some rights. But there's a treaty. I think it's between Turkey and I don't know if this is Syrians or Babylonians. But anyways, there's a treaty where they mention something about women's rights. It's the oldest women's rights, in a sense, document in the world.
I like how women's rights aren't just obvious. They have to be given or permitted.
Yeah, they're a whole other thing other than human rights, right?
Right. That's why people are like, "Are you a feminist?" I'm like, "I'm a humanist." There shouldn't be any delineation between women's rights or men's rights.
Well, there shouldn't be. I think that there should be a feminism, because there isn't. That's like saying there shouldn't be gay rights. Well, you're right. It should all be just rights.
I hate the idea that it. Right. I'm saying there shouldn't.
It shouldn't have to be.
Yeah, it shouldn't have to.
Well, yeah.
Accomplished. Yeah. There is an old historical way that this question has been answered, and in the native communities in the Lakota, which is I'm somewhat familiar with. I've danced the Naraya a couple of times, the ghost dance Naraya a couple of times. I'm very, very close friends that do call themselves professional shamans. But that is the question that they've asked, that they've been tasked to answer. What are the rights? How do we assure these rights? You know what they did? They created a council of just women. And only the women are able to declare war, because men want to go to war, so they cannot be trusted with the ability to.
They don't want me on that council, because I would go to war every day. I want.
Some of these women.
They don't want me. I would be the woman king over here, like Viola Davis.
That movie was awesome.
You told earlier. We know what you got in your heads. We know that don't sleep in the military.
Well, speaking of that woman king, though, you're talking about that movie about Africa. They actually were big into slavery. So there's not
right. Yeah, but she was actually in the movie. Well, and someone was saying, like, the actual story was that they were advocating for slavery, but in the movie she was trying to get the king to deal in palm oil rather than people, but that's making her look, that was their attempt to make her look more palatable than the actual character. But I wouldn't advocate for slavery, but I probably would be going and being like, let's take their stuff. I like that beautiful river over there, but they rule it. Let's go get it.
Well, that certainly is what
isn't it better to have the cooperation?
The norm.
Wouldn't it be better to have their cooperation, not have to conquer?
No, you're right.
And have to be able to free exchange with them, that you wouldn't have to take over. You wouldn't have to manage a people. See, that's what's really
right. But if they don't want to cooperate, then we're gonna take their stuff.
Yeah.
Well, so you would advocate for rape? They don't, right?
Say what, Damien?
Logic advocate for rape. If I have a sexual desire, should I just be able to just rape because I can?
Of course not. No.
Well, I'm just saying I don't see that.
There's no parallel there.
If you're married to her, yeah.
No, there's no. Well, I know that's very common, especially with chimpanzees. They do that, and I know
so dolphins, rape,
ducks, otters. Y'all think of those otters are cute? My brother's just like, oh, otters are cute. It's my favorite animal. I'm like, no, they're wild. You don't want to deal with them.
And even the duck's anatomy has proven that you're familiar with the duck's anatomy.
The corkscrew penis
and the vagina moves will misdirect the penis, so she doesn't get that guy.
The fact you even had to evolve that is just like so disheartening.
Oh well, I only got 3 times this week. It's like,
that's a good week for me. That's horrible. There's videos on YouTube of like mallard ducks chasing, like a mallard male's like 5 or 6 or 7, like chasing a female, and she's trying to get away, but they're not letting her get away. And I think Robert Sapolsky said that half of baboon populations are forced. So rape is extremely common in the
right. And I think that ethically we could do better than our lowest nature. Just like I said, I'm a high functioning sociopath. My nature is to dominate, to not care, to be completely selfish. But I don't think that's the best part of my nature. My nature is also to be highly creative and to be understanding of people. I can use all the good sides and not, focus on the negative qualities. And that's what I was saying too about any system that we're in by choice or otherwise, is that we still have a choice in how we think. Let's just say that I have to do capitalism to survive. I understand that, but loving the system that is toxic to me. And that's what I'm trying to address. And that's also why I think it's good to understand religion as the whole corpus and all these parts, because then you can address the issue of religion or how its negative impacts can be. Because like I said, I'm not saying it can't be some positive things, but once we can see what is happening, then we can make these more accuracy judgments on its negativeness or its ways that it can be used in a positive way even.
Yes.
Like I said, environmental. Totally for that. They're going to use Totemism and teach that or animist thinking to protect the environment. If that works, great. We need to protect the environment. We need everybody on the same side of protecting the environment. So yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that don't do that.
I think that once we know what the role churches or religion or have, I think those really honest ways of evaluating what is this for, what role does it fill, what niche or activity does religion or fulfill, we can actually create programs, institutions, cultural relevant things that actually do the same thing.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying we need religion. I'm just saying the fact that it can be used negative, it's also a fact that it can be used for positive, is all I was saying. And I like to be a fair judge or attacker on my thinking. Like I said, I'm a rationalist. So my in a sense, like you said, angry atheist persuasion would be fuck our religion, it's all shit, all dog crap. I don't want to touch it. It's like sticking my hand in poo. And then getting it washed off completely will always worry me, even if I wash it. But I also want to be a rationalist and not let my passion guide me, but my reason guide me. And so that's why I try to look at more detail, because I want to accurately understand. And I want to accurately address it. And then what I try to do, like in this video, is I wanted to present the stuff and try to help teach people. Because I know sometimes the concepts I talk about, they may not be familiar. Not just even, the two guests or even Cory, but the larger audience that could watch this video or read in my blog. Sometimes the way I talk, what I talk about, is that they just don't grasp, like, why is that important? And I want them to understand all like totemism, animism, shamanism are important, and paganism, because you're actually, if you have a religion, you are all of those things.
It comes out of human expression. I mean, we have those things to examine or look at. It is the subject of discussion because humans creatively did this as a way of explaining our own inner psychic, trying to make sense of the world so that we can get through and we can fall in love and create community and build bonds and the things like that. That actually religion is actually one function that does it. I think family is another good way that it's functioned. Another institution that's been corrupted by, whose taints of religion and patriarchy have really
Tell me about it.
Family.
Yeah.
So,
and on that, along those lines, that's why what Damien talks about is so esoteric, is because that's not how people were raised to understand that there are contributions from shamanism and paganism, animism, to their religious beliefs. Because just personally speaking, one of the arguments my father and I did get into was regarding Christianity being the initial and final religion. He's like, nothing predates the Bible, nothing predates Christianity. We actually, it was not, that was one of the many arguments. But, and their understanding, and that's not how I was taught. I was taught that anybody who varies in your views is wrong. Even someone who is another denomination of Christianity is wrong. And I always talk about the story about my mom arguing with the Jehovah's Witnesses that come to the door over whose religion was more valid and whose wasn't. And it's just, I'm like, are they really arguing right now? And that's how most people are raised. So when I started to learn about these topics, it became a lot easier for me to navigate out of Christianity. And I believe that's the fear, and why this knowledge is so limited is because the goal is to remain in the religion in which you were raised. In which you were inculcated, because you want to remain, and they want you to remain part of the group. So this is, I want, that's kind of my goal as well, is to kind of take this teaching and to inform others, especially those looking to leave Christianity, and help them facilitate them out of that limited thinking.
What I try to do is use those principles in which they were actually given and shared, and why they're interesting, and repeated and repeated and repeated. They're lessons here and principles to understand about how the world really works that do actually, like if you're a jerk, you're just asking people to be a jerk to you.
Right.
That's just the way the human beings work. You aren't telling somebody else, you aren't creating this. It's the way it works.
And religion has a functional purpose. That's the whole basis of its origin, is its functionality.
Concepts that are different, that help us to live better. Now, those concepts are not exclusive to religion.
Right. And that's what people don't understand. And I don't know why people, and I get this a lot on my page, is a lot of Christians affirming, or basically asserting, that Christianity, without Christianity, there is no morality. And without the Christian God, it's impossible to even be moral. And how are you evaluating your views as moral if you don't have the Christian God with which to contrast them? And that is just a wild concept to me. And it's just, it doesn't make any sense to me how anyone could ever think that. Because Christianity is a fallacy.
They're just claiming something without any support. Because
exactly.
Like I said, if you ask me which religion is so obviously ethical, it would be mainly the animist cultures.
Agreed.
They're obviously ethical, and they don't have really gods at all, or they don't have.
I can get with animism.
Yeah,
I like animism.
They're the ones that are doing the least rape, and they're caring about women's rights and children's rights. I mean, that's all shit I stand for.
The health of us. If I can make sure you're healthy, you don't spread disease to me.
Right. Well, you know that because of the Christian God. That's who taught you that, Glenn.
Yeah.
So
people have never heard of it, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, like how is that? If you had never
animal
been
eats off of some other animal. It's like what I do. With this animal's going on about its business actually provides a living and an eating for another animal that just goes about his business. It provides the living and an eating for this other animal.
Yeah. It's an ecological benefit. There's an ecological benefit, and there's no religion needed to understand that or to execute it. Basically,
and
from humans, we can execute it intentionally.
Right. It's not intentional.
And I think that's one of the benefits too. If you grasp everything I'm trying to teach, is I'm trying to show the humanness of religion, the culture of it. Not because everyone says like my special friend and this other. I'm trying to say, look at these
special
things.
Friend,
And what,
yeah, why not?
Look at why all of us. Look at why all of us, in a sense, are doing this, and how you can see it spread when people move.
Yeah.
To me, that really the migration and then religion changing, or coming to an area because of that's not a new thing. That's an old thing. And that's what I try to show with the stuff is to remind people. It's not like everybody had these unique, religious ideas. Animism is a natural thing. Everything else after that is not. It just isn't. So it's culture.
It's culture. It's self-expression. It's
Yes, it
human art and expression,
and imagination and dreams and power hungry and greed and everything else. It's all those things, But I think that Cory's going to go back and read some more because I think there's still a little bit to read. I believe
we have more to read than we have time to finish. So
well, we won't do that. We'll stop at 3 hours, but go ahead and read some more.
Okay.
And there's a blog if everyone wants to. Remember, like I said, I'm attached to the thing. You can read more.
Oh yeah, this is incredibly detailed. I really love this and respect it.
Thank you.
A lot.
So we got.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just gonna say we got Norse religion was to me animism, like all religions then are, and it is a type of shamanistic paganism with heavy totemism. And then there's a link to Norse shamanism, totemism in the Norse culture. In paganism, alcohol or the effects of alcohol were often thought of as relating to a goddess or god. While hallucinogens are associated with shamanism, it is alcohol that is associated with paganism.
Paganism. Just people know that some of the later mixing of pagan shamans start using alcohol in some of the similar ways that they would have used hallucinogens. But so it's not like it's a clear thing. Once, like I said, also, once you get these are like Legos that are stacking on top of each other. Yeah. So it makes one unit, but it's all these little pieces that are actually inside of that make that unit.
And different bioregions have different mushrooms and different alcohol.
Exactly. Obviously,
I was going to say whiskey and moonshine.
Well, no, the Appalachian region. In the areas where the mushrooms grow all the time, there are probably a lot less alcohol things. But the area where there's no mushrooms, it's probably big in alcohol to make that hallucinogen or trance state or whatever that a lot of shamans go.
Yeah. You don't go to the Amazon to drink whiskey.
Right. Right.
No, you don't. That's
you go to ayahuasca.
Yeah. Oh, dope. Okay. I was thinking you just went to Jim Bob McCoy and learned about Jesus. And I'm from Tennessee. I just came from Gatlinburg. I'm actually trying to stop drinking. But yeah, like I love whiskey. I'm a Tennessee girl, 100%. So
moonshine and like cheap beer.
I'm an ex-alcoholic. I do not drink. I had my liver failure spell at 17.
Oh my god!
My grandfather died at 40 from alcoholism.
Oh my god!
And my father is constantly buzzed. He has like say 8 or 10 bottles all around the house, or he used to. I've not been there in like 20 years, so I don't know, but used to. Like one in the bathroom, one in the car, one in the bedroom, one in the the garage, one in the kitchen, just all
constantly
over. Constantly having wine.
That's where I come from. I mean, not my immediate family, but the town and things like that.
I'm saying, so I have not had alcohol since 1989.
Way to go.
And I respect that. I'm trying to. Well,
I didn't drink for the 90s. So,
but as you notice, I don't go like crusade to make everybody, and I wouldn't anyways. Even if I thought it was the most evil thing in the world, if other people who own their own bodies want to do it, Damien's opinion would be: is it their body? Yes, then it's their body. It's not mine to decide you shouldn't drink.
Yeah.
Like I said, my morality is simple. You understand that? That is the core of everything. Should we own other people? Do they own their own body? Yes. Then no, we should not do slavery ever.
Well, unless it's consensual and it's like a.
That's a whole other thing.
Well, I think you can have, in a sense, consensual rape play. I do not agree with rape, so it's not the same thing. Well, I'm just saying, it's not to me. It's people own themselves, so if they want to do BDSM, good. But if people don't, then you shouldn't be be able to do it. In fact, you shouldn't be able to have sex with someone just because they're your spouse. Do they own their own body after marriage? They should. So,
my ex-boyfriend was not even into that. I was like, listen, well, let me not get into detail, but I was like, can you be like dominant? He was like, Googled Dom sub and was like, no, I can't do that. I'm like, well, why are you here? Well, he's no longer here. I'm sorry.
I like like neutral. I don't like someone below or above. I'm more, in a sense, anti-hierarchical. I'd rather have free association.
So you're like a switch.
Yeah, I guess you can call it that. But switch generally means that you go to one, a dom or a sub, and I don't switch. I am always me, authoritative, but always communal. So I mean,
for me, it depends on if I'm with it. Well, I don't sleep with men anymore, but like when I did sleep with men, because of how I was raised, like there's a clear dichotomy between roles. So if a man wasn't dominant, I wouldn't see that as attractive. I would be like, well, I don't want to be.
And there's women that have not seen me as attractive because they look at my presence and how strong I can be and dominant, and yet I don't dominate them, and that's what they wanted, and so they go.
Yo, that was the same thing with my ex. Like he was this big dude, and he had like broad shoulders, and I'm like, yo, you're built to dominate. And he was like, well, I can't do that. I'm just gonna go, work on my car, and I'm just like. Yeah, Damien. So totally relatable. Yeah, because I relate to those women because my ex was very big too, but that's just not his personality. And
like I said, it's just for me. I like anarchism. I like it in my political. I like it in my personal life, and I do relationship anarchism. Like me and my wife don't have roles. People thought me and her used to go to a lesbian bar. And they thought that I was her gay friend because of how I interact with women is so not male. But then again, really, I'm intersex and genderqueer. So, I mean, it's not shocking that I could be around people and them not totally get that because I'm not really. And but I was just making a comment that I'm a sociopath. It certainly is nothing against me dominating. I'd rather dominate than be dominated. I mean, but I just don't have that drive, that male or whatever, that aggressive drive to want to do that.
I do. I just like I'm a top verse, but it's like femmes are the best. Femmes are the best.
Same. I agreed.
Best. I want
to. For you personally, it's not best as in that is the best.
Oh yeah, it's personal.
I'm just making a comment because I'm not against people being strong or being dominant, especially as I say if it's consensual.
Yeah.
More power to you. Whatever you want to do. I mean,
total respect. See, you can tell whether somebody, the really good doms, it's like the sub or the femme is actually the one in control. Because you can only do and manipulate and get permissions for what they're able to do.
That's true. Consent.
That's true. Consent and everything is the whole sexy part of it. So moving out of consent makes it just not sexy, right?
It's not attractive. When people are being hurt, it takes away the appeal, to be honest.
But I'm just going to make the comment that if people like that are okay with that in a relationship, I don't judge that being good or bad if it's good or bad for them.
Right. Yeah, that's just
it may not be good or bad for me. Like I said, that's just not me. I was on set life for a while, but I just
I'm totally with you.
I don't fit, so I left.
That's for me was a maturity journey to be able to allow myself to mature and to fully express myself and to have Yolanda in bed with Glenn instead of a million other people who was trying to please Yolanda. You know what I mean?
What do you mean by that?
Instead of being a role for her, doing a thing for her, being a person, being actually there in the room, interested in her experience.
Okay, I feel that. Okay.
Instead of like performing. Have you ever been with somebody and they used the porn arm? Have you ever been with somebody and then they used
No, what's the porn arm?
Like you're fucking or whatever, and they do the porn arm, put one arm behind your back. So the camera can see the action. Like you're
off to the side a little bit.
Put the arm behind their back so the camera can see it. Just because
the hair out of the face, you mean?
Really, I've never noticed that.
I don't know. It's a guy. It's maybe a more of a guy.
I have to pay attention to that now because I've never noticed that or known it was a thing. That's funny.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Corey. Read some more before we're done.
Or I'll change the subject again, and it'll get worse.
Okay. Paganism, an approximately 12,000-year-old belief system. Question mark. There's a question at the end of that. Defining paganism is problematic. Understanding the context of its associated terminology is important. To Damien, paganism roughly emerges around 13,000 years ago with the agricultural explosion in Turkey or Anatolia, and the connected areas such as in the Levant, described as the crossroads of Western Asia, the Eastern Mediterranean and Northeast Africa, and the northwest of the Arabian Plate, including Cyprus, Israel, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, Syria, and Turkey. Turkey is a nation straddling Eastern Europe and Western Asia with cultural connections to ancient Greek, Persian, Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman empires. Paganism is part of a linked group of religious thinking seeming to turn the once believed animistic spirits, or a belief system dating back at least 100,000 years ago on the continent of Africa, that in Totemism, which dates back 50,000 years ago in Europe, with newly perceived needs where given artistic expression of animistic spirits, both animal or human, seemingly focused on female humans to begin with, and only much later is there what looked like an added male focus. But even this evolved into a believed stronger communion with more connections in shamanism, which is a belief dating back at least 30,000 years ago. Newly perceived needs. Then this also evolved into paganism, a belief system dating back at least 13,000 years ago in Europe, with newly perceived needs where you see the emergence of animal gods and female goddesses around into more formalized animal gods and female goddesses after 7,000 to 6,000, or only after 7,000 to 6,000 do male gods emerge, one showing its link in the evolution of religion and the other more on it as a historical religion. Early Christians referred to the diverse array of cults around them as a single group for reasons of convenience and rhetoric. While most pagan religions express a worldview that is pantheistic, polytheistic, or animistic, there are some monotheistic pagans. While paganism generally implies polytheism, the primary distinction between classical pagans and Christians was not one of monotheism versus polytheism. Not all pagans were strictly polytheist. Throughout history, many of them believed in a supreme deity. However, most such pagans believed in a class of subordinate gods or daemons, see henotheism, or divine emanations. Paganism traditionally encompasses the collective pre- and non-Christian cultures in and around the classical world, including those of the Greco-Roman, Celtic, Germanic, Slavic tribes. However, modern parlance of folklorists and the contemporary pagans in particular has extended the original 4 millennia scope used by early Christians to include similar religious traditions stretching far into prehistory. A paganist believe in spirit-filled life and or afterlife can be attached.
This is my definition, by the way.
Okay. Believe in spirit-filled life and or afterlife can be attached to or be expressed in things or objects, and these objects can be used by special persons who, or in special rituals, can connect to spirit-filled life and or an afterlife, who are guided or supported by a god or goddess, or goddesses or gods. You are a hidden paganist, or paganism is an approximately, Paganism, an approximately 12,000-year-old belief system, and Göbekli Tepe, first human-made temple, as well as Çatalhöyük, first religious designed city, are both evidence of some kind of early paganism. Early paganism is connected to Proto-Indo-European language and religion. Proto-Indo-European religion can be reconstructed with confidence, such as the gods and goddesses, the myths, the festivals, and the form of rituals with invocations, prayers, and songs of praise that make up the spoken element of the religion. Much of this activity is connected to the natural and agricultural year, or at least those are the easiest elements to reconstruct, because nature doesn't change and because farmers are the most conservative members of society and are able to keep the old ways. Proto-Indo-European religion goddesses. There are at least 40 deities, although the gods may be different than we think of and only evolved later to the ways we know, such as how a deity's gender may not be a fixed characteristic, since they are often deified forces of nature, which tended not to have genders. Among the goddesses reconstructed so far are Priya, Pleto, Devi, Perkunos, Eusos, and Yama. Proto-Indo-European religion myths. There are at least 28 myths that can be reconstructed to Proto-Indo-European beliefs. Many of these myths have since been confirmed by additional research, including some in areas which were not accessible to the early writers, such as Latvian folk songs and Hittite hieroglyphic tablets. One of the most widely recognized myths of the Indo-Europeans is the myth in which Yama is killed by his brother. Manu and the world is made from his body. Some of the forms of this myth in various Indo-European languages are given in this article about the creation myth of the Indo-Europeans. There's a link there. The Proto-Indo-European, or PIE, is estimated to have been spoken as a single language from around 6,500 years ago. To the Kurgan hypothesis relating to the construction of kurgans, or mound graves. The earliest kurgans date to 6,000 years ago in the Caucasus.
Which I think also has an influence on why they've been making, stuff like shell mounds and stuff like pyramids. That's a similar kind of thing. They work as both burial mounds and just, depending, temples. Either temples, high places, or burial mounds above graves, in a sense, or part of the grave.
And it does, and this happens like all across the world at roughly the same time. Whether you're talking the Amazon,
the mound culture in the Americas is about 5,000 to 6,000. The first pyramid is 5,000, or semi-pyramid is 5,000.
Everybody's building pyramids,
right? and to me, it's the similar culture ideas, not the same culture. Like there's a show I don't agree with Graham Hickok, or whatever his name is. He has a show on Netflix called Ancient Apocalypse. Yeah, There's no need to watch it. It's bullshit. But even though I'm saying he just because you have some archaeological facts doesn't mean the shit connecting them is correct. Yeah. There was no one culture. That's fucking wrong. Or one tribe that went and told everybody, because C is a big one that makes the stuff for the Americas, but C is not what went to Europe. What went to Europe was R and N, and R, N, and T, I think, are what go to the Middle East. So, anyways, my point is, I'm trying to say is that there's multiple, because obviously what I mean by is haplogroup DNA is what I'm by numbers. I'm saying R and
I'm
C.
following.
Well, I'm just making sure, not just for you guys, the guests, but remember, there's going to be a video for everybody. So I want to make sure that, because they may, what are you talking about? I want to make it understandable, not just say stuff randomly and they don't understand. I hate when sometimes preachers do that. They go, blah, 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 blah. I'm amazing. Yeah, you said a bunch of shit, didn't explain anything, and you didn't make it what the fuck you're talking about.
But did you put money in the basket? That's all.
Right. But I don't just want to say stuff and have knowledge and someone to believe in my knowledge. I want you to understand.
I want it to be useful, right? Why do anything if it isn't useful? That's
how I feel. And also, I don't want you to follow me. I'm an anarchist. I'm not trying to make people follow me or believe everything I do. I'm trying to present the information. You should go look up everything. Maybe you'll have a little bit different opinion than mine. That's not a bad thing. You should be thinking. But I have thought a lot. So I'm sure probably if you look at the similar facts, you'll come up with similar things. In fact, sometimes archaeologists will say something to me. Like recently, this guy said that he didn't think that ancestor worship is so old or whatever. It's a totally new thing, after Christianity. And I'm like, no, that's not true. And I said, and he goes, he doesn't think that animism, was the original thing. And I said, well, here's a research that they studied, 33 different hunter-gatherer groups present today all over the world, from Africa to the Americas, and everywhere in between, Asia and stuff. And they say it's 100% that all of them are animists. So it shows and then gods, like there's two kinds of gods they list. Just like Shamanism they list is 79%. Afterlife beliefs is 79%. That starts to make you think maybe afterlife beliefs and shamanism has a connection. They have the same, they go together. But just like it shows, gods are only 39% any belief in a high god. And then the actual active belief or whatever, like they think they're active in the world, is only 24%. So even though some believe there is a high spirit or something, it's almost like pantheism or something, that there is a deity, but he doesn't really have any rules for us. And then there's a smaller version, 24%, that say, oh, that deity might give us rules or something. But it just shows but that's not the 100% that animism is. It shows that they didn't grow in animism, in other words. And they didn't grow even in shamanism. It's way lower. The belief is not directly related. Anyways, once he saw that, then he's like, well, I guess my stuff is more about technology of stone tools, and I just do the anthropology of religion. It's like, but see that when they say that to me, I'm not saying he's wrong or, trying to, but the evidence is showing that he needs to learn more. Add to, if you're going to talk about religion. Mm-hmm. If you're, that's why I don't think that, any archaeologist, like the Graham Hancock is constantly saying that academia is wrong. Yeah, I love archaeologists. I'm not saying that. Anthropologists are great historians. All I'm saying is there's a difference when you get the big picture about what you're talking about. Being an expert at stone tools does not make you an expert at religion.
No.
Well, I'm saying, so it's not that they're not in a sense related, or could be, but a lot of the problem why I don't think that there's an advance of religion, two problems. Why is not a more advanced of religion in, say, academia when it relates to archaeologists, is because archaeologists want to try to, like a skeptic in a sense, stick to the facts and then be doubting everything. Mm-hmm. So their job is not to come up with foundational beliefs that this is this about what the thing, because a lot of times they'll just say it's ritual, or it seems to be non-utilitarian. Utilitarian meaning that it's only used for, they believe, a non-religious purpose. But there's a problem with that, because there used to be these spoons that people would carry around. I can't remember if they were on a neck or whatever, but they were like a sacred spoon that they would, have, so it was connected to religion. But yet, if we found those without knowing that context, we would just say it's just a spoon.
Right.
Got no religious connection, and we would be wrong. So just like when they bury, people like the Kurgan burials, a lot of them also had beakers, like the beaker people that went to England and took over and killed 90% or depopulated and became 90% of the population. Almost like total genocide.
They brought disease,
They buried people with beakers, with beakers like a glass or something, or a container, like a large container for alcohol in a sense, or food or whatever, but generally tubular shape, and they would say that's probably ritual, but they don't know, and it's probably about afterlife, but they don't know, and it's probably, what I'm saying, but I don't have to try to stick to that. I look at the stuff and say, to me, that is religious, but I say on all my stuff, these are my speculations from the evidence to try to show there's different kind of speculation. There's wild speculation, where you could have no, in a sense, justification or less justification. There's different. And so I'm not saying that they don't want to speculate at all, but sometimes to me in their general thinking, they should. There's one guy, they found bones, and then they're picked clean, probably from animals, or left to, in a sense, the weather. And then they find a lot of these, birds that basically eat flesh or whatever, or scavenge, but he says it's just a wild speculation, which I don't think it is, or a speculation that it has to do with sky burial, which is where animals eat the bodies as a form of then sending the body in a sense to heaven by the birds. But
and getting rid of disease too. You don't have a buried body. You don't have something decaying. You're actually turning turning.
Well, yeah, you're talking about the function, right? You're just saying it has a function of it, but I'm just saying, but they don't often do it to where let wolves. Like a lot of times they put them on posts and stuff or hang bodies, so it's only birds that can get to it. It's not low enough where the general things are eating it. But my point is, I'm saying that he didn't. I read this video where he talks about it, but he tries to be like real wishy-washy, even though he's got all the evidence. So, but that's all I was trying to say is it's not sometimes to me even when they know, it's not that academics like the Graham I was referring to, the pseudo-archaeologist Graham, Hancock, that it's not that they don't want to say it. They are just so skeptical of what they're seeing. They just try to say, I just stick to the facts. It looks like religion, but they don't even like this. So it's not that. My point is, it's not that because he tries to say they're hiding I don't think that at all, because I've talked a lot of them. As long as I can explain it thoroughly, then my ideas, then they generally go, oh well, yeah, wow, if that's right, that's amazing. But
because they're thinking like scientists like to hedge, right? They want to be,
right.
This is actually only like 97% accurate. There's still that chance that we're going to be wrong here. So
it's the narrative. That's why it got on television. And that's the nice thing to say. And that's the academic thing. And that's not challenging. And that, it's like, right. It also serves the order the way it is. And it's not an accident.
Yeah, I really think that they should be doing more. I mean, personally, they should.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, like, that's all the same. But like I said, I do appreciate what they do. I don't agree with him at all. I look at all the facts and I put the facts together in the global sense of time and space and people and movements. That's why I don't stop at just religion. I've learned, the DNA. Who's moving around? Who can we prove?
Exactly. That's why I bought so many texts on anthropology and biological anthropology, because it starts with that. Yeah.
What kind of food are they using? Because that's how I found out about Asians, coming into the Balkans and the Black, Black Sea region of north of it, is because millet shows up. And then as soon as millet shows up, also this new similar type of behavior starts showing up. And then languages start showing up. Well, these people, everywhere millet went in China, everywhere it went, new languages. And these spread religious ideas. And nobody's researching how the hell that got over here. They're thinking it didn't get over here, that's all about over there, and that over here is all by itself, like Indo-European. I think that not the whole language, but part of the language, because the ones from China, they actually go and become part of Turkey. They become all these, but that's where Indo-European starts, is right at that point.
Sure.
It then branches off almost at a similar time. And if you look also with the Semitic languages, which Hebrew and Israeli whatever is connected to, and so is Saudi Arabia and the other parts of the Middle East. That language starts about 6,000 years ago and is right in line with movements from Iran, which is where I think the Indo-Europeans close to there, and so does the Chinese, language stuff coming from Siberia and stuff. But I'm saying, so what I do is I show people movement, I show DNA to back that up, I show culture changes, and I show the pottery comes in, where it comes from. So when you start into languages, that's how, because of animal husbandry, you start looking at where these animals came from, where and how they moved around. Just even like pot or marijuana is somewhere like in Kazakhstan to China, and then spreads out all over the world practically from there. So it shows
practically overnight.
So it's very small. But I'm just saying, so it's a very small thing, and all of a sudden it becomes all over. Then you can track that and all the beliefs in the sense that go with that, and it helps you to understand. That's what I'm saying. What I try to do, is I wanted to, because I was a believer, and then all of a sudden I became an atheist in college, but it's not like I trusted atheists. I knew that I had been lied to, but I wanted to really know for myself what is the truth. And that's why I started really focusing on all this different learning, because I realized I want to know the truth. I don't want to just say things. I want, or at least as best as I can. And I actually learned a lot more even than I would have ever imagined.
So let's extrapolate a little bit, because when you have a millet culture, right?
Correct.
Or you have a pot culture. Like in the Northeast, before we got here, this was the Northeast was a oak and chestnut culture,
Right.
you know. So it's like the religions or religious expression, cultural identity, everything comes around an expression of how to best use or understand or pass, like you were saying earlier, pass on the knowledge to your children so they're okay, so they know how to live in this bioregion, right? So you tell
I agree. But like I'm saying is, though, but they started with similar beliefs, like I said, of the mounds or the kurgans or like or pyramids. And I'm not saying they're all the same thing.
No,
but I'm saying they have the same mytheme, the same mythical themes are what inspires, in a sense, different variations.
Are we doing that today? That what the rest of the idea goes with that thought. With the thought experience is are we doing this today? The tech culture or the way we live today.
Well, we do this absolutely.
Chains or whatever. I don't know.
It's like people wanting to act like or talk like Americans, or act and talk like people that were British or whatever from like India.
So it's like capitalism is the new religion.
Well, people absolutely think or behave as if capitalism is religion.
Capitalism meets all of those criteria. There's ritual. There's time.
I don't disagree with that at all.
So it just meets. There's the temple.
Well, right, because religion. That's what I'm trying to say in general. Is religion is not a special thing.
No.
Yeah,
that's what I'm. So
it's
of course, other things can be the same sort of behavior, because it's a behavior. It's a behavior, and it's cultural, thing. It's like when people say someone has common sense. Well, common sense, if like you said about the Amazon, if you live out in the Amazon, or common sense in Brooklyn, New York, or common sense in Tennessee, or Canada, or it's not going to be the same common sense.
No, it is not.
But
don't be an outspoken atheist lesbian in Tennessee.
Yeah,
it's not common sense.
It's not common sense. Yeah.
But see,
well, I think we're about over 3 hours.
We are over 3 hours, so yeah.
So it's been really great, everybody. I appreciate. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Plug anything. Go ahead, each one. Go ahead, Glenn. You can go ahead and say stuff again. And then Nikki, and then.
Yeah, thank you. My website is glennganaway.com. What I do a lot is teach spiritual principles in everyday language from an anarchist and integral perspective. And if you're interested in improving the way that you think, your ability to stay present, that's what I do so that you can make a better decision about the world that you want to build. So that's kind of my own thing. What's stopping you from being present to seeing the world clearly so you can make a decision that's going to actually have the effects that you want? To do that requires understanding what Damien talks about, what Cory talks about, what you're talking about, Nikki, is to say, to understand the obstacles to my ability to see correctly, to see clearly. And that requires examining my own beliefs, right? Living up to my own values, which is why I'm an anarchist, in the sense that means match ends. I do the right thing because I want the right thing to happen. I don't have a particular view of exactly how that is supposed to look, but I do know that it'll be the right thing if I do what is mine to do. And that is my integrity, the way I live in the world, aligning myself with what is true and participating with what is, because that's always reliable. So if you're interested in anything like that, I have a YouTube channel, Glenn Ganaway, at glennganaway.com. I'd love to hear from you.
And in the blog, I haven't yet, but I'm going to add your info and your links, what you want. And the same with Nikki. And I already always add Cory's, but thank you. And go ahead, Nikki, and tell us whatever.
Yeah, so thank you for having me on. Most of my involvement right now is currently on Twitter, but Twitter is kind of a dumpster fire. So I'm moving over to Mastodon begrudgingly because I'm not really a fan of the platform. But that's kind of a process that's in its current development. But yes, follow me on Twitter at Beat the Cult. I also have a YouTube channel, which is also Beat the Cult. And I'm in the process of developing a store so I can provide clothing for people who want to express their lack of religious belief. But I am, looking forward to developing my own podcast platform down the road where I can interview mostly those who have left religion and also Christians who want to keep people in religion. And I've also done some other podcasts as well. And I am just continuing to grow my platform. So down the road, I'll have a little bit more to offer. But yeah, thanks again. Follow me on Twitter. And I do have an Instagram. It's just not very involved. But all of that is Beat the Cult on YouTube, Twitter, and Mastodon and Instagram. So yeah, that's what I've got.
Thank you.
Yeah,
right,
thank
Cory?
you.
I suppose before we get too close to the end, I want to just mention everybody needs to stay on after I hit the close and recording, so your files can finish uploading to the StreamYard. But also, I should have both of you on my show sometime. That's the Mind of a Skeptical Leftist. So I talk about anarchism quite a bit. I talk about atheism a bit, skepticism. I'm trying to spread critical thinking, progressive politics, and left-wing philosophy. So that's my show. I'm at Skeptical Lefty on the Twitters. And that's
the
it.
Twitters.
Yeah, I also feel like Twitter is not being as trustable. So I didn't like Mastodon, but I did a tribal social or whatever, and I'm getting a lot of response. So
good. I'm still learning how that works.
Me too.
I'm not a fan, but
well, everyone, that's watching, and I guess I appreciate you coming, and I thank you for your time.
Yeah,
let's hope the shaman fixes Twitter. All those shamans fix Twitter.
Hello, and welcome to my channel. I am Damien Marie AtHope. In the simplest terms, I am an atheist-humanist philosopher and prehistorical writer-researcher at DamienMarieAtHope.com. I am specifically an axiological atheist. An axiological atheism can be thought to involve ethical and value theory reasoned and moral argument driven apatheism, agnosticism, atheism, antitheism, antireligionism, secularism, and humanism. Axiological atheists can be understood as a value theory or a value science atheist. As an axiological atheism's ethically reasoned and constructive pro-humanity. I am an axiological thinker, value theorist. The science of goodness, worthiness, usefulness, valuableness, virtue, reliableness, accuracy, validity, morality, integrity, beneficialness, etc., etc. We axiologists have a value consciousness. And in general, we see the architecture of humanistic humanitarianism value in people that we see as dignity beings. Places and things are not. Axiology is a value theory. In its broadest sense, it involves areas of philosophy that are deemed to encompass some evaluative or evaluation aspect. Therefore, it crosses almost all domains in some way or another. Now for a more detailed terms as to what I am. I am an axiological atheist, an anti-theist, an anti-religionist, secularist, humanist, rationalist, writer, artist, poet, philosopher, advocate, activist with schooling in psychology, sociology, as well as I am an autodidact, self-taught in science, archaeology, anthropology, and philosophy. I promote science and am against pseudoscience, pseudohistory, pseudomorality, things that are found in religion.